Are we ready? La
Yep.
la la la.
Me, 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 me,
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, fellow weirdos, and welcome to Horror Through Her Eyes. You've got the Amateur Destroyer and the Taminator here in his house, and we're ready to explore the twisted world of horror and prove that girls enjoy horror just as much as the guys do. Hi, Tammy. How are you?
Hi, Jessica. Long time no see.
Indeed, indeed. She's kidding
This
because
is
we just
our
recorded last night.
yeah. This is our Christmas episode. So
Yes,
got my
Tammy
Santa.
is
Yeah.
festive with her Santa hat. It's like a disco ball Santa hat. So be jealous.
Oh, they didn't have pink, and I wasn't doing red, so there's blue.
There you go. Isn't red closer to pink? What do you have against
Yeah, but
red?
it's like too Christmassy. Like I
Oh,
have I've got my pink tree over there. We don't do red and green at this house, so.
okay, got it. Got it. Well,
And
green's
you're
my
in your,
favorite color,
I say
so
you're in your I hate Christmas hat, so that's fine.
yeah, I'm actually just in a beanie, but it happens to kind of be Christmassy on accident. So I think I wear a beanie every time we record.
Yes.
It's cold in here, man. So I'm always in beanies right now. It'll be fun in the summer when I'm in little like flowery dresses and stuff.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Because we always record after work when I get off work. So I'm always in whatever I wore for work. So it's kind of funny. All
I
right.
work in my pajamas a lot, so a lot of times I get dressed at 7 p.m. for the podcast because
Oh, okay.
I can just get up and put like socks
Yeah,
on and go to work all day. So nobody's gonna
that is
see me. What am I gonna
awesome.
get dressed for?
Right. Yep, totally. Yeah. I work from home mostly, but we do have like video meetings with clients and stuff. So I still have to at least wear like a nice shirt or something.
Yeah.
And then I pop on a beanie when we do the podcast.
That's your podcasting outfit.
There you go. Well, I mean, I just take it off during meetings, but otherwise I'll just have it on anyways. But all right. Well, we have probably a long episode ahead of us. For many reasons. We just happen to have a lot of content tonight, but also we're doing Tammy's pick, which is Black Christmas from 1974. And Tammy loves Black Christmas. I mean, who doesn't
Oh,
really?
mm.
But I imagine she's going to
I'm
want
thinking
to be loving all over it tonight.
I am gonna be making love to it for real. I bet no one loves it as much as me. Seriously.
Wow. I wonder what Tammy's rating's going to be.
Gee.
Awesome. Well, first, we're going to jump into our haunting headlines. All right. So, first on the roster is Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. Hit theaters last month, and it was surprise released on PVOD at home yesterday. You can rent the film for $19.99 or purchase it digitally for $24.99. And if y'all missed out on Thanksgiving in the theater, it is so fun. I know that
It's
it's already
so
like
good.
Christmas time, but I don't know. You should still watch it anyways. There are some good, memorable kills that,
Say a good movie's a good movie. It just happens to be set at, you know,
yeah.
Thanksgiving.
I know
That's a
I'm
kind of a
saying
steep
that.
rental.
Huh?
It's a little bit of steep. That's kind of a steep. Seems like a steep rental, but you know what? It's probably what it costs to go see it at the theater. So if you can't wait till it's like $4.99 next month, I would say it's worth it for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then, of course,
Yeah.
I'm saying watch it anyways. But whenever I miss out on Christmas movies, I'm always like, oh, I guess I got to wait till next year. So do as I say, not as I do. All right. Next up, we have following its premiere at the year's Popcorn Frights Film Festival, the horror comedy Santa Stein?
Yeah.
Santa
Yeah.
Stein,
Like
like
Frankenstein, but
Santa
Santa's
and
good.
Frankenstein,
Yeah.
is is now streaming on the Bloody Disgusting powered Screambox. Man, I need to get Screambox. They're starting to get stuff that I'm interested in. The
Mhm.
film follows a young man who brings a serial killer Santa Claus back to life. Santa Stein tells the story of two friends, Max and Paige, with a rather peculiar hobby. They like to bring things back from the dead. With
Okay,
their
this sounds
first
really good.
It does. It sounds we have a lot of Frankenstein stuff going
Yeah.
on this year. It's crazy.
Mhm. I noticed
Um,
that.
not tired of it yet though, because I love that story in general. So it's fun seeing everybody's different like interpretations of it.
Yeah, there's so much you could do with that,
Yeah,
seriously. So, and they are. So, yay.
right. With their first successful rodent resurrection, they set their sights on something bigger, following in the footsteps of Frankenstein himself. When they decide to bring back the body of a man dressed like Santa Claus, Max feels it is his chance to right the wrongs of his past, having accidentally. Oh, I don't want to spoil this. I'm not going to read any more of this.
Okay.
Everybody be excited, and we'll keep an eye out for when this comes out. But they have spoilers, so forget that. All right. Next, an ancient prophecy centered around immaculately conceived twins, one evil and one good, is poised to deliver religious terror in Deliver Us. Now available on VOD from Magnet. I don't know what Magnet is.
It's like a brand, like, what is it, a studio? Like, it comes,
Hmm.
I can picture their logo. Like, I've seen it at the beginning of other movies. So,
Okay. In Deliver Us, it says that when a nun in a remote convent claims immaculate conception, the Vatican sends a team of priests to investigate, concerned about an ancient prophecy that a woman will give birth to twin boys, one the Messiah and the other the Antichrist.
I hope so. Yes.
That sounds cool. I'm into
Yes.
it. It sounds right, you know? You got to
Yep.
balance out the world.
Right.
Messiah and Antichrist. Next on the docket, from the screenwriter of The Ring and The Ring 2, comes The Ghost Station, which is a brand new horror mystery based on a Korean urban legend that just hit VOD outlets yesterday. While covering an accident, a young reporter learns that her source was dead prior to their interview. As more mysterious deaths occur, she and her partner dig deeper into the case, eventually coming face to face with a horrifying truth in The Ghost Station, which debuted on digital, Blu ray, and DVD December 19th from Well Go USA Entertainment.
That sounds good too.
That does sound good. I love Korean horror.
And ghost
Like,
stories. So, like the two together.
yes, I know. They're always just amazing.
Yep.
Um, oh, did you ever watch Home Sweet Home, that one series on Netflix?
I tried to and I couldn't get into it, which Mark yelled at me for. And then I've never tried again. And now I see there's a two just came out.
Yes,
Did you
I'm
watch the
so
first one?
excited. Yeah, Raina and I watched the first one. It was weird because it had like a lot of flaws, but there was something that Raina and I really connected with in that first season. And we've been waiting and waiting for the second season because I feel like it was when heavy, like during heavy COVID that we watched that.
That seems
So
right. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
so excited to finally watch the second season.
Right.
But yeah, I just thought I would ask since it just came out. All right. I guess that's a haunting headline from Amateur Destroyer, Home Sweet Home Season 2. Okay. Let's see, our last bit of news here. What would you do if your brother-in-law turned out to be a vampire? That's the premise of the Brazilian horror comedy A Vampire in the Family, coming to Netflix on December 24th. In the film, when a faint hearted ex soccer player learns his brother in law is a vampire with world domination plans, he must gather his courage and save the day. All right, sounds
Uh,
cute.
yeah, that could be lighthearted fun.
Yes. Could either be lighthearted fun or super cheesy, but I don't know. Sounds cute. I'm into it. I'll watch it, especially right before Christmas.
Right. I always need a
Awesome.
horror movie right before Christmas.
Absolutely. So we're done with our haunting headlines for this episode. So I'm going to let Tammy start us off with Fright Bites.
I really don't have anything because the one that I have here is actually will be, I mentioned it on our next episode, and I haven't watched anything else. Although
Oh,
I did forget to say that Landon and I went and saw Die Hard on the big screen last weekend, and it was an amazing experience to get to see it again. I freaking love that movie. It's like probably one of my top 10 of all time, all genres kind of
yeah.
movies. And it was his first watch. So, and he said he really liked it. So, yeah,
Yay. That's
it holds
always
up so
whenever you
well.
show your kids like your favorite movies and you're trying not to look at them too
Yeah,
blatantly because you know that they're sitting there like,
yes,
they're waiting for my reaction, and then they're all stressed out, and then they're like, I didn't like it.
yeah,
So you just have to act cool and then hope
yeah,
that they like it.
yeah.
So it's always really sad when they don't. But it's really awesome when they do.
I know. Well, Landon said he did. So, I don't know. It was fun. Yeah, I
That's
just love
awesome.
seeing those old movies on the big screen again. Like, God,
I
that one's got to be
know.
like 40 years now almost. So,
Oh my God.
I think it's
That's
88, right?
crazy.
I think it's 88. So, it's
Holy
getting
shit.
there.
Wow.
I know.
That is nuts. Okay, well, I have a couple of things, nothing super big, but I rewatched When Evil Lurks. Still brutal.
Why
That
did you
might be.
rewatch that? You just wanted to?
Well, I wanted a couple of my friends to see it because I thought that they
Oh,
would really appreciate it. So I kind of forced them to watch it, and they did appreciate it. So I felt good about it.
yes.
I felt good
Yes,
about
it's a
recommending it.
heavy one to rewatch, but yeah.
Yeah, I know it might be my only rewatch so far for this year. I've been super slacking on getting in second watches, so
I was
hopefully.
thinking to myself the other day, it's like, oh my gosh, my list is looming like within a month. And I'm way behind for Horrorcast for our year-end
Yes,
list. Like, oh my
I
gosh, I
know.
can't even
At
think
least
about it.
I think we're a little behind on our episodes over there anyways, so it'll give us a little time to catch up because I honestly haven't even had enough first time watches this year. I've been
Right? I
totally
know.
slacking.
That's just it. I feel like I haven't even got all my first times in, and I don't know when I'm going to before next month. So yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be Tammy's
So,
list of 3 instead of Tammy's list of 20.
right. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of prioritizing to do. Picking
Yes.
out, okay, what movies do I absolutely have to see before the end of the year? Um, like I said on the Horrorcast, I think I wasted all of my free time that I had this year on Tubi movies because nothing
Right.
was really coming out at that time except stuff on
I
Tubi.
know.
So, and now I don't have time and all the good stuff's coming out. So
Yeah.
I'll
I
have an
know.
interesting list. Besides that, my friends that I showed When Evil Lurks, they showed me Antichrist from 2009, which is a Lars von Trier movie. Have you ever seen this one? It has
Hmm.
Willem Dafoe.
I think maybe a long time ago, but I'm not 100% sure. I think
Okay.
I did, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's one that has always been on my I need to watch this list, especially because I like Lars von Trier, or at least what
Mhm.
I've seen from him so far. I just kind of like how heavy and like what's the word I'm thinking of? I don't know. All of his stuff is just so heavy and it feels like it has a lot of meaning, like it's not just artsy for artsy's sake. But this one, I have heard some things about it before, so the first half I'm kind of like, well, when is it going to get to all the stuff that I've heard about? And then it really ramps up at the end. And I think because of the ending that we should definitely cover it on the
All right,
podcast at some
all
point.
right, all right.
I think for like a female-led discussion, it would be a really interesting one, especially since it's actually, the creator and director is a man, and it has a lot to do with women. So I think it would be interesting for us to dissect at some point. But like I said, that one's heavy, so we'll put that one on the back burner.
We'll add it to the very long list that we have.
Exactly. And then other than that, I caught up on Delicate, the season 12 of American Horror Story. I think it's okay. Um, I'm not as annoyed with all the characters as I usually am at this point, so that's good. I just feel like it's so hard to watch anything like this. And just, I don't know why Rosemary's Baby is like the only project like that can exist in my mind, and everything else is just a ripoff and can't even come close.
Because it
You know
is.
what I mean?
I know this is based on a book, which I haven't read. What do you think about where they left it with splitting the season in two? I think people are going to forget about it.
Yeah, I already forgot.
Right? Like, I'm not sure what their plan was with that. I don't think that was it. Like I said, I think maybe they've listened to the feedback and people say they lose interest and never watch it all the way through, but I'm not sure this is the way to do it either, because you give so many unanswered questions, and now you're going to make me, I don't even know when the second half's coming out. So.
Right. Yeah, I think it's dumb, personally. I always hate when they do this, actually. I don't know if it ever works out. Because I just forget everything.
That happens to me with like Netflix series all the time. And then the second one comes out and it's like, well, now I got to rewatch the whole first season again because it's been a year and I don't remember what's happening,
Maybe that's why they do it, is to just get their watches up higher, because they know everyone's just going to forget and have to go back and rewatch.
Well, I guess, yes, that's one way to do it.
But I definitely don't hate it. I know that you are okay with Kim Kardashian in this role, but I don't like it. I don't like her.
I guess I don't like her either, but I was just like, so many people like, oh, I'm not watching it because Kim Kardashian's in it. I guess I was just trying to say, like, she's just herself in here and she's not in it a ton. So don't not watch it because you think it's all about her, because it's
right.
Not.
Yeah. Nah. I mean, that character is fine. The only thing I really don't like, I might have mentioned this the last time I brought up that I was watching this season. I don't think so, actually. It's just that there are certain characters that are playing these very like specific important roles, and they come off really cheesy, especially in their dialogue. And because of who these characters are, or who I'm assuming they kind of are, I just want them to be taken more seriously and to take themselves more seriously, because they could have actually been really like terrifying or creepy or, any of those things. Mm-hmm. But, what's his face always has to put this
I don't know. It's
comedic
almost
spin
like
on it.
Yeah, like they're going for camp rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. But it's so hard to know if you've even fleshed out these characters, because now we're stuck halfway through with no idea what's.
Exactly. And they've just basically showed up like in the last episode or something. So
yes.
It's like any intensity you could have cultivated has been lit.
I totally agree on that one.
Yeah. And I did watch what's come out so far for season 3 of the American Horror Stories. Mm-hmm. And my favorite is Tapeworm. I think you said that was your favorite too.
Yeah, that's my favorite too.
Okay, I remember us talking about a tapeworm and me being like, okay. But no, that was also my favorite episode. Although there's like a change in the main character that I feel like happens like way too quickly. But aside from that, I enjoyed the episode. So I would recommend that episode. And all of them are just okay.
Yeah, they're fine. I agree.
Yeah. But that's it. That's all of my Fright Bites. So Tammy, would you like to lead us into maybe not a new segment, but a new titled segment that we're going to call Echoes from the Abyss?
Yeah, so we have decided to, because we love our listeners, we've decided to, kind of add some of your feedback for us, some of what you guys had to say about the movies, we ask for, what you think of movies before we record them. So we've got a bunch of stuff like that. So we're going to include that in the segment. You guys can let us know how you like it. So the first one on our Suspiria episode, Dan Johnson commented on Facebook, you guys mentioned the fight with the girls. This was written as a fairy tale, and the girls were supposed to only be 8 to 10 years old, which would make that confrontation not as strange as it turned out with the older cast that the producers wanted them to go with. Yes, agreed.
But, yeah, and I think I've heard that that little tidbit somewhere that they were supposed to be young girls. But yeah, I was like, oh yeah, that's why they're making faces and sticking their tongues out and stuff. But I don't know, it still fit strangely.
It did because it helped, I think helps to keep you in that. We talked about how the whole thing feels like a fairy tale. And I think that just kind of helps to go with just to add to the strangeness of everything that's going on.
Yeah, I'm glad they kept it.
Yep. Okay, Nicole, I'm sorry if I butcher your last name. Jessica and I decided or discussed how to say it. I say it's Trowick. If it's not, let us know. But anyway, Nicole commented on Facebook. So I watched before listening to the podcast. Giallo and Italian horror has been a blind spot for me as well. So I've been trying to watch more the last couple of years. This is probably my second favorite too after Tenebrae. You really can't go wrong with Argento, but I don't know if I've ever watched a movie that was equally beautiful and disturbing like Suspiria. Yes, girl. I agree. Mm-hmm. I do have a question though. Does everyone else think that taking Sarah falls into the razor wire, did Saw 2 get the idea for their needle pit from there? I've watched Suspiria a few times, but this time I immediately thought of that Saw trap, LOL. Oh, and I love the score. Can't forget about that. I still listen to Goblin. They are incredible. I would love to have seen them live. Yes. I didn't think about that, but I could totally... Oh God, I can just feel it just talking about it, you know? But yeah, I mean,
I had responded to her on Facebook because I was coincidentally about to rewatch Saw 2. So I was, which I forgot to mention in Fright Bites, but I did rewatch Saw 2 with my friends. And having her bring that up, and then also recently listening to Mick Garris interview James Wan and finding out that he's a huge Giallo fan, I think he probably definitely took inspiration from Suspiria for that scene in Saw 2 where she falls into the needle pit. Yeah. So good call on that, Nicole. I mean, I can't obviously verify that, but I'm thinking that your head's on the right track.
Even if it's not a direct, like, it's definitely an homage to that scene either way. Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't think anybody who's seen both films could watch Saw and not think about that. You know, so I just haven't seen Saw 2 in like forever. Mm-hmm. So, but I know exactly what she's talking about. And like I said,
I know, I feel like for the whole franchise, I feel like people always remember the needle pit like more than anything else.
That and the jaw thing, I always remember. And yeah, the needle pit.
And those both happen to the same character.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Poor her.
I know, right? Poor girl.
All right. Long-term friend of ours, mine anyway, Jerry Cortez. Amazing film in my top tier for that year. Oh, I'm sorry. We've gone on to Hagazusa now, which yes, I am so, I have not read these and I am eager to hear what everyone had to say because hopefully, I'll know what I had to say by now. And I think, I think the year that I joined Horrorcast, this was on, I think this is 2017 or 2018, around in there. I think this was on, I remember him saying this was on his list. So that must have been right when we started podcasting together again. So amazing film in my top 10 for that year. Bought it right away. Too slow for some, but one of the most compelling third acts of that year. I adore this one. No one else raved about it right away. I felt like a man on a lonely island.
Oh.
I think your people are coming out of the woodwork now, Jerry. Just hang on. Mark Merriman, Mike said, absolutely loved it, but it's a type of movie that can be a hard sell. Yes, I would not know how to sell it.
Mm-hmm. Also, sorry, just for our listeners, because I referred to him as Jerry Cortez, because he commented on Facebook, but that's Mr. Venom, everybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You probably heard him on like one of his 10 podcasts at some point.
Yes. Okay, Rodney Wilder. I really enjoyed the aesthetic of it, but I remember feeling like it was way too thin on plot. Yes, my man. Just hallucinatory visuals and atmosphere with the occasional plot anchor to anchor them. Okay, he just said in like 2 sentences what I took an entire podcast to say as usual. But I think he and I agree. Yes. Nicole.
I know when I read that comment, I was like, holy shit. That is exactly what Tammy was saying. Because when you said that, it like blew me away. I was like, you are right.
I got
That
some
it's
shit.
not like
I got some shit for feeling like that, but I still stand by that's how I feel.
that's fine. Yeah. Feel how you feel.
I'm feeling my feels. Okay. Nicole Trowick again. So I did watch it and I have a lot of thoughts, but also a lot of questions. This should have been, you and me both, girl. This should have been a movie I loved. It's folk horror, has, yes. It has witches, it's a period piece, and it's a slow burn. And maybe I need to watch it again, but it just felt very disjointed. Yes. Now, visually, it's stunning. Yes. The sound design was perfect. The acting is good. I couldn't connect to it, though. Same. I can't help but compare it to The Witch, which is exactly what you and I said, Jessica. A movie I adore. I ended up watching it after Hagazusa and was actually surprised at all the similarities. But where The Witch filled me with dread and kept me on the edge of my seat, this just made me uncomfortable at times and bored the rest of the time. Yes, and yes. Maybe I'm just not smart enough. No, girl, it's not that. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to fully understand what the director was going for. I see themes of trauma and isolation, maybe even mental illness. Was she a witch or just ill like her mother? Did she only become what she was at the end because she was pushed into it by others thinking they were evil? I'm not sure. Same. Plus, all the themes of sexuality and abuse, it was a bit much. Yes. You have the inappropriate scene with the goat. Agreed. Phallic symbols, the mushrooms, and even the snakes, alongside what seems to be the main character's attraction to a woman. And you have religious imagery. The snakes, again, they can mean multiple things, I guess. The apple being tempted. Wow. She's doing a good deep dive here. Her washing her hair like a baptism, not knowing anything about the father of the baby, Virgin Mary, anyone? Right? I think there was just too much going on. It was hard to swallow. I tried reading some articles after the fact and they weren't offering up much because I don't think anybody else knows either, Nicole. Okay. Nothing like where my mind was going with the movie. And one article talked about how maybe nothing that happened after the mushroom scene was even real. And that just confused me even more. Yeah, me too. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you both have to say about it. Maybe it will make things clearer in my mind after hearing our review. It was well worth the wait. Great review, guys. And I agree with a lot of what you both said. It's the ending that really brings the movie down for me, and nothing I looked up after could explain it to me. If I had an explanation, I might be higher in my rating. I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. It had a lot of good stuff, but Tammy said it best. It just didn't feel like a full movie to me. As for the whole Tilda flirting, Swinda flirting, I saw it too.
Maybe
but
Tilda's her real name.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
I saw it too, but I noticed Elbrun's looks towards Tilda first, and I think Tilda also picked up those feelings and went with it to get close to her. Yeah, manipulation, right? I think she was kind of setting her up from the beginning, but I'm with you guys. I was hoping for a lesbian witch movie. Yes. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. I'd be for all for a period piece where two women are branded heathens for falling in love and surprise their witches. Yes. Where is that movie? Then they wreak havoc on the town. Yes. Oh, someone make that movie.
We agree.
We agree.
Wholeheartedly.
Okay, Sam Edwards, who's always so sweet. I personally love the film, but it's odd and very depressing. Yeah. I don't want to spoil anything, but I personally don't believe there's any witchy stuff going on at all. No? And I think there's a total argument for that. I can see that. I don't want that to be true, but I can see it.
Yeah.
Dan Johnson said this should be interesting. About a week ago, I said I haven't seen this yet, and Jessica commented, I said, well, I should watch it. I did today and have not heard your podcast about it yet. Here are my thoughts. Hagazusa is an art house film with stunningly beautiful visuals of the Australian Alps. It's a 15th century super slow burn about Elbrun and her goat herding mom living in isolation out of town. A superstitious townspeople shun them and call them witches. Elbrun's story is incredibly sad and depressing, showing a very hard life and how that affects someone, whether being a witch or not. That is true. Mm-hmm. Many people will not, he calls me out here. Many people will not care for this film, parentheses, I'm guessing Tammy included, but I am very open to where an original story wants to take me without holding it to any preconceived demands on what I need to see from it. I wish I could be more like you, Dan, but I cannot. I believe many people let their own expectation ruin lots of films for themselves. This is a very moody, uncomfortable folk horror movie that goes places mainstream films obviously won't. 4 out of 5 stars from me. Okay.
I agree with a lot of that.
I agree with
Like
a lot
it,
of that. I don't know that I let preconceived notions ruin things for me. I think we all just like what we like, and we all just connect with what we connect with. It's just that, you know?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if he was directing that specifically at you. That part, anyways.
No,
Well, remember, this is before he hears our review. So this next section is him after he hears our review. So he wasn't calling you out yet. He was just guessing.
Oh, no, he's about to, though. After hearing our review, I listened to the Hagazusa episode at work today, and Jessica wanted my thoughts on the discussion. For about the first hour, you two were really hating on the film like a couple. I love you, Dan. Like a couple of real swindas. Yes, that's true. But the longer you talked, you both basically admitted it's better and smarter than you were giving it credit for, especially at this very low budget. That is true. Now that was interesting to hear as it was happening. I will also say that when I logged it on Letterboxd, I see that Revenant Vin also gave it a 4 out of 5 stars like me. FYI, You Won't Be Alone was my number 7 favorite horror film of the year last year. You two should review that soon and see if Tammy has the balls to say that's a bad movie too.
Yeah, that must have been an autocorrect. Bells.
Is that on our list? I don't know. Like, you were saying that you really liked it. It's not on my list. Is it on your list? If it's not, I will put it on my list.
Yeah, it's not on any list yet, but yeah, we can definitely. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it like right now since we just did Hagazusa, but
yeah,
absolutely we should watch it at some point.
All right. We just did 2 witches. Maybe we should give everybody a break. There's no witches tonight, so all right.
There you go.
And no witches.
I know. Correct.
All right. To get into one of the greatest movies of all time ever made, Fight Me, if you don't agree. Black Christmas. This is what you guys had to say before tonight's episode. I love these. Okay, our good friend of mine, Mark Lang, who's such a sweetheart. This is without a doubt the best film named Black Christmas that you can watch. Except no substitutes. Amen. Lenny Buccatello, A Christmas Tradition. Yes, it is also a Christmas tradition for me, but it's also a couple extra times a year tradition for me.
Nice.
Greg Buzelli, legit classic and a Christmas week must watch. Yes, sir. Jennifer Schlossnagel. This is one of my all-time favorites, and I always like to point out how it came out 4 years before Halloween. Yes. Also, Barb deserves better. Don't they say that in Stranger Things too? Like, don't they say that about Barb from Stranger Things? Barb deserves better.
She did.
Anyway.
Poor Barb.
Yeah. I know. I always get a kick out of that Bob Clark did A Christmas Story too. Yeah, so do I, for sure. That's just
I know, it's so fun.
How does come out of the same brain, you know? But
yeah,
it's pretty. Okay, Nicole, again, I love this movie so much, and it's perfect timing to watch it. It's always on my December rotation. It is such a groundbreaking movie. Yes, I love the POV shots and the kills. The phone calls absolutely still give me chills they're hard to listen to. Without this movie, we would not have the OG Halloween, which is my favorite movie ever. And I totally agree about Barb. She's my favorite. A lot of Barb love tonight. She's my favorite character. I grew up watching Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, so did I, and didn't see this movie until I was an adult, but this is still my favorite role of hers. And I probably shouldn't admit this, but I kind of like the new movie. Now, I know it's horrible. It's way too in your face with its message, but my daughter and I like to watch this together. Well, then don't worry about it when anybody else says, especially if you found something that your daughter and you can watch together. That trumps everything else. We just laugh at the whole movie and get a sick satisfaction out of watching the gross little boys get what's coming to them. It's great mother-daughter bonding time, LOL. I've never seen the 2006 version, but I think it's on Shudder, so I want to watch it. I haven't either. The movie definitely isn't a masterpiece like the original, but it's a fun movie, especially for any woman that's experienced harassment or worse by a man/men. I think that's all of us. There are things I would change if I could, right. But it's not half as bad as people say. I did try to watch the new one, and I didn't finish it just because, I started doing something else, but just kind of never felt like I needed to come back to it either. So I had heard terrible things about it. So I don't have an opinion. What do you think of it, Jessica, the new one?
I haven't seen any of the Black Christmas remakes. I want to eventually. It's just not like high up on my list, of things that I need to watch. But with coming Christmases, I'm sure, because I'm starting to kind of run out of like all the classics that I had been meaning to see for so long, like I'm starting
Mhm.
to kind of like mark all those off. So I'll probably get around to them within the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But I did let Nicole know on our Facebook group page that our friends, Headlong into Monsters, they did an episode where they reviewed the new Black Christmas. And Ashley over there, one of the co-hosts, she was also kind of like, you guys are talking a lot of shit, but a lot of the shit has a lot of weight, and you're not considering any of that. And I felt like her argument was very compelling, and it did make me want to give it a chance. And I appreciated what she had to say about it. So yeah, I'm sure it can be both things, right? It could probably be kind of annoying, but also be kind of true. So I will
Well,
give it
I
a
mean,
chance at some point.
I will admit, I have not heard women talk about like all the bad stuff I was hearing was from men, and I understand how quickly that is. That kind of came out in the height of all that Me Too stuff, which is, that's very legit. I'm not dissing that or anything, but I can understand how that can get tiresome, and we were getting a lot of that at that time. Maybe it deserves a rewatch now, what, like 5 years later, and I understand that message can be a lot, but there's definitely truth to it. So maybe I need to sit down and watch it and, make a choice for myself. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
but
can't
in
be that.
general, if you guys didn't know, Tammy and I don't typically love remakes anyway.
Yeah.
So whenever there's a remake, I'm always like, maybe I'll get to it eventually.
I mean, like, I say it, this is why I don't like them, because some movies just, I don't care. They just shouldn't be remade. And I just think that this is one. It would be like if somebody remade Rosemary's Baby, which they did, and they did it as a TV miniseries, which, if y'all haven't seen that, it's actually not that bad. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's definitely not Rosemary's Baby. But
Yeah.
there's just some movies, just leave them alone. I mean, I still think Halloween should have been left alone. Look what happened there. Yikes. It's gone off the rails. That's just my opinion. But
Yeah.
anyway. All right. So Amateur Destroyer's mommy, Charlene Houchin, right? Charlene
Molar.
Moeller.
Yes.
I think this one came out the same year as It's Alive did. I never saw this one. Can't wait to watch it. Mom, what right now? Whatever you're doing, if you're listening to this, go. Run to the TV.
I like that you called out my mommy.
Yeah.
I know when she said that, I responded. I was like, oh my God, you're going to love this movie. She would love this movie. So I hope that she does watch it.
This is, I don't know. This movie's for everybody. I don't care what anybody says. It does have there's some really great feminist, kind of undertones to it, but not, I mean, what I've heard is like the remake, they took them and just went crazy with them. This one, it's a nice blend. I don't think it's off-putting. And I just, if you're a horror fan, I don't know who would not love this movie. It's just got everything.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. And from Instagram, Christine Lynn says, Christmas feels but still scary and best of all subversive. Yes, yes, yes. Jane Friday, a masterpiece. I have to watch it every Christmas. Yes, yes, girl.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it. I liked including those. You guys let us know what you think, but I love that stuff. So
yeah, and thanks everybody for commenting.
Yes.
This is clearly the most feedback we've gotten so far. So it was really fun. And even like feedback after the fact, for past episodes is really cool to see too. And be able to talk to you about it kind of in this way.
Yeah, please. I mean, whether you agree with us or you don't, we love your feedback. Either way, we don't take it personally. We've said from the beginning, this is a soft spot, safe space for everybody. So that's how, I mean, be nice to each other, please. No meanness, but you're definitely free to say whatever you think, feel about what we say, about the movie, whatever. We love the feedback. So
yeah, call us a couple of swindows again though, and I'm coming at you through the computer screen. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, especially because there's nothing much worse than a Swinda. So, ouch.
I know. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah, I was just roasted, man. Okay, so let's get to it. Movie review of Black Christmas, 1974. Warning, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. This is a spoiler-filled podcast, so this is your warning, okay?
Yep.
In case anyone hasn't seen it, I'm going to go over the cast really quickly as soon as I find my IMDb with the cast page. Hold on, sorry. All right. So this stars, and I'm just going to get this out of the way since this is a safe space and say I am absolutely 100% in love with all my heart with Olivia Hussey. And fight me if you want to, but I have just had a crush on her forever. She is insanely beautiful. I also think she's a really great actress. She was absolutely perfect for this role. She plays Jess, the main girl with the cool sweater with the hands on it. Keir Dullea plays Peter, who you might know him from 2001, A Space Odyssey. That's him. I know a couple other movies with him in it too, but I think everybody kind of has a general idea of who he is. Margot Kidder, who, like Nicole, when I see her, I think of Lois Lane, but she plays Barb, who is kind of like of the sorority house. She's kind of like the drunk, I would say.
You mean the cool one? She's the cool one.
Yeah, the cool one.
And honestly, I have a huge crush on her in this movie, even when she's sloppy drunk. I'm like, yes, Margot Kidder.
Yeah. We just have different tastes in women. That's all there is to it. Now, do you remember when we did the I cannot think of this movie. Hold on a second. Give me 2 seconds. We did the Cronenberg series. And which one was John Saxon in? He was in one of them. The one with the
one of the Cronenberg movies?
Yeah.
Huh. I think so. I don't know. Let me see. Everyone can hear me typing.
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought he was in one, but maybe not. Well,
I'm gonna mark this down so I can take out that silence.
Right. I could be wrong, but anyway, there's another actor in here too from one of those in the same movie. My computer's slow. Art Hindle, who plays Chris. Well, he was in The Brood.
Was he in The Brood?
Yeah, he's the main guy in The Brood. And I think he was in another one too. Anywho.
Oh, Chris. Yeah.
There's just a lot of kind of this was filmed in Canada was where I was going with all that. So there's a lot of they tend to seem to use a lot of the same movies or actors up there, I've noticed. So.
Yeah, I'm sure during that time especially.
I know John Saxon and I recognize him, and then Art Hindle, who played Claire's boyfriend, Chris. There's also, I don't know that you'd really know anybody else. Andrea Martin plays Phyllis. They call her Phil, who's kind of like one of the, I'd say third in line and as far as main characters.
I love her.
I love her too. I don't think you'd really know anybody else. So if you wanted, you could just look on IMDb.
Who plays? Can you bring up whoever plays Miss Mac, because I love her.
Yes, Marion Waldman plays Mrs. Mac, MAC. Let's see if she was in anything else. Oh, it looks like all kinds of she's done some TV, and then I don't know, whoops. Looks like some other B horror movies, maybe. Nice. Black Christmas, Deranged, and Phobia.
Okay.
All right. So not a huge career, but anyway, she was perfect to play Mrs. Mac for sure.
Oh my God. I love her so much.
Oh, me too.
I think she might be my favorite character.
Really?
I really love her and sneaking her. What was she? She's always sneaking like schnapps or something.
Sherry.
And she's got it like in the toilet, in the book that she like carved pages. She's so funny. I love her.
I was thinking to myself, like, why is she hiding it? Isn't she old enough to drink? Like, couldn't she just have a glass of sherry if she wanted? But then I was wondering, like, maybe as a house mother, she's not supposed to be drinking.
I was thinking that like the kids would find it and drink it. And she was like, F that.
Oh, well, yeah, because she's got it in the toilet.
Yeah. So I feel like she was just hiding it so no one would steal all her freaking liquor.
That makes more. Yeah, and a sorority full of college girls. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Yeah. To hide it. All right, so a little intro. Released in the United States on December 20th, 1974, just in time for Christmas. Black Christmas is a notable film for many reasons and widely regarded as one of the greatest horror films of all time. Yeah, that is, yes, agreed. It has a genuinely creepy atmosphere, a multi-dimensional story, and includes one of the first and most interesting final girls. Black Christmas tells the story of a sorority house terrorized by an intruder as the residents are preparing to leave for winter break. The house receives a series of disturbing phone calls. The caller makes sexually explicit comments and threats. After a sorority member goes missing, the investigation into her murder takes place as each of the other women in the house is brutally murdered. Bob Clark produced and directed the suspenseful holiday slasher. It's interesting to note that he also directed and co-wrote the screenplay for another notable holiday classic, A Christmas Story. Yes, that one, from 1983. At the time of its release in 1974, the slasher subgenre was in its infancy. You know what? This came out only 9 years after Black Christmas. A Christmas Story did.
Wow.
This doesn't seem that old, but I guess it is. You can see elements in Black Christmas echoed in later slashers, specifically John Carpenter's Halloween 1978. Shots from the killer's perspective set up a genuinely creepy atmosphere. We know what's going to happen as we observe the victim who has no idea what's coming. As with many early slashers, there is little overt gore. The kill scene suggests what the killer does to the victim, which is just as or perhaps more effective. Jess, played by Olivia Hussey, has recently found out that she's pregnant. When she tells her boyfriend, Peter, played by Keir DeLay, he thinks it's great news. Peter automatically assumes that Jess is going to put her life on hold to marry him and have his child. However, Jess stands her ground. Go, Jess. Yes. She has plans for her future and is not ready to become a mother. When she asserts herself, Peter becomes furious and threatening. Black Christmas addresses social issues. God, I cannot talk tonight. Addresses social issues still relevant today, such as a woman's right to choose her own life and to have control over her own body. Yes. Yes.
Preach.
Yes. Jess knows who she is and where she wants to go in life. She takes ownership of her life and her sexuality. There's also the age-old generational conflict seen in the character of Mr. Harrison, played by James Edmond, the first victim's father. He gets a look at his daughter's room, which is decorated with posters depicting sex, among other images considered subversive. He also learns that she has a boyfriend. He openly expresses his disapproval of the environment provided by the house mother, Mrs. Mack, played by Marion Waldman, and says that he intends to do something about it.
I love that scene, by the way, when she's like trying to cover the poster all nonchalant, and then she goes out of the room before him and he looks. So funny. Sorry, continue.
No, exactly. The viewer is thrown several twists and turns as we follow the investigation into Claire Harrison, played by Lynn Griffin's disappearance, led by Lieutenant Fuller, played by John Saxon. Claire also piles on the holiday cheer with cheerful parties by roaring fireplaces also piles on the holiday cheer with cheerful parties by roaring fireplaces and large trees decorated with multicolored lights. A kill scene is intercut with the choir singing Christmas carols. That's such an effective scene, too. I love it. Last but not least, a gentle snowfall on a cold winter's night. Black Christmas made its mark on horror history. Black Christmas's plot is layered as the film's final girl, a trope that would become a slasher movie staple. Considered one of the first slashers, the movie helped lay the foundation for the slasher formula. Its plot elements and filmmaking techniques can be clearly seen in later slasher movies, and its multi-layered plot incorporated weighty social issues that are still just as relevant today. When the film was first released, I promise I'm not drunk. I do not know what promise. That's why it's the perfect first Christmas review for our podcast. It takes place at a time when sorority houses were full of women who planned to lead independent lives for the first time. They weren't to become nurses, teachers, or find a husband, and the patriarchy wasn't happy about it. Unfortunately, with the recent overturn of Roe versus Wade, this story is just as relevant today. What better way to keep a woman in her place but an unplanned pregnancy she could do nothing about? The horrors put upon women continue 50 years later. I think this is the perfect Christmas movie for our first podcast because of the perfect representation of the duality of horror for women portrayed in it, and both put upon them by males and how they can punish you for just being a woman. Don't be too pretty. Don't be too independent. Don't be too trusting. Don't let your guard down. Don't be having too much fun, i.e. don't live your life for yourself. That is Tammy's essay. Thank you very much.
Woo! Woo!
All right. Good night, everyone.
Wouldn't that be nice if that was it?
Oh, God. I'm about to talk for a whole bunch more. So, when did you first see this, Jessica? Like, do you remember when you first saw it?
When did I first see it? I probably should have thought of this before. I feel like it wasn't that long ago. It was less than 10 years ago, for sure. It was one that I was finally like, okay, like Christmas horror is a thing, apparently. I hate Christmas. Maybe this will make me like Christmas more. And it did. So now I just watch a bunch of Christmas horror movies around Christmas, and I'm a lot more tolerable of it. So this was definitely one of the first Christmas horror movies probably the first Christmas horror movie that I watched. So besides,
I don't think I'm far behind you. Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's
surprising.
But once I think I just kind of lumped it in. I didn't realize what it was about. I think I just kind of lumped it in with some of the older, like, kind of corny Christmas horror movies that, you just watch for a laugh or whatever. But then once I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever.
It's so good on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. But I think since the first time I've watched it, it's like the one movie that I've seen every year around Christmas.
Yeah, me too. And like I said, a couple extra times a year.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Let's get into it. So we open on a sorority house with Silent Night playing. And right away we see Jess running into the house, and she's going to be our main and final girl. But our POV stays from outside, like someone looking in the windows at the Christmas festivities on the outside. The POV switches to someone coming up the walk and looking up at the bedroom windows of the sorority house, then watching the girls inside at their Christmas party, but the door is closed. Cut to Barb, who we meet now, coming down the stairs and says, hey, who left the goddamn front door open? But POV is still outside, so no one came in. Then the point of POV climbing the trellis on the outside, back to the party with Barb and her ever-present drink, ribbing them about being the only one decorating for the kids' party the next day. The phone rings. Dun, dun, dun. Jess answers it for Barb, who leaves to take the call. POV back to someone coming in a window from outside and into the attic. We only see them in shadow. They drop down through the attic opening. He sees Barb on the phone, but she doesn't see him. Cut to Claire getting home. So we meet Claire. She's going to be our first casualty here. Getting home and kissing her boyfriend, Chris, goodbye. Barb invites the girls skiing, but only Jess and Phil agree. The phone rings and Jess yells for everyone to come in that it's him again, the moaner. The moaner. So I noted here that this has already been going on. Now, you're going to hear it sprinkled throughout my notes. I know at the end we're supposed to think we don't know who did it, but I believe it was Peter who did it. So through here, I made notes all along the way why I think it's Peter that did it. And I was just gonna laying that out there for everybody. I'm sure
You think it was Peter that's calling?
I think it was Peter all along. I think yes, I do. I think Peter's the killer. I know you're not supposed to think that, but I do. All right. So this has already been going. Everyone comes to the phone. He starts making disgusting slurping noises. They comment that it sounds like more than one person, and it does sound like male and female voices. Language alert, everyone. Okay, I'm going to say it. He starts making pig noises and laughing and saying, "Cunt, let me lick it, lick it, lick it. Let me lick your pretty pink cunt." The girls look rightfully horrified. "Suck my juicy cock, suck it, suck it." He ends with, "I'm going to kill you in a," oh, yes, he ends with, "I'm going to kill you," in a regular voice, which in my opinion is one of the most chilling moments in the movie. It's like the only time the guy ever says anything just normal. You know?
Yeah. Like, so just a few things just about our opening. I mean, right away, like the 70s aesthetic and just how how real it is.
In so many ways here. Yes.
I know. It's great. Like the fashions, the sorority house, like the graininess and the palette, and even the way it's directed. I just love everything about the way that it opens, and the carolers singing Holy Night and or Silent Night. It's like it's friggin' perfect. And then we see that POV, you know, so right away we're like, okay, what's going on? This is strange. And then they get that call pretty early on, you know, and it's very, very unsettling. It's so genuinely creepy and not cheesy in any way, shape, or form. And the way that the caller switches between voices makes it all the more creepy. And you're just like, wait, how could they be doing that?
I don't know. It almost like it would, I mean, nowadays it could be done so easily with like an app on your phone probably, but you got to remember, like, so take your self back down, you know, back to 1974. This whole POV thing, a lot of people are probably seeing this for the first time here, which is strange, weird, especially because how the movie starts, you don't get any idea. It's so happy and merry, yet calm and peaceful right up until this phone call. It's beautiful outside. You hear these beautiful carols. Everyone's happy. Everybody's planning their Christmas. We do hear Barb kind of have a fight with her mother and calls her a world-class whore, I think. You're a world-class whore. Mother, you really are, or something like that. But I mean, it's funny. But it's all levity up until this phone call. And I left a lot. I just put in a small portion of what he said. This goes on for a couple minutes of him saying stuff like that. And I obviously cannot do the voice, but if you've never watched this, it's just, I don't know, crazy.
Right. And just the look on all of the girls' faces while they're all gathered around, and it's so silent, you know, in the middle of this Christmas party that they're having. It's just truly terrifying. Great way to open up the movie.
Well, and I think that these are just words like pussy and cock. They just make you, or me anyway, they just hit a certain way. You know what I mean? And I don't think you hear them in movies, maybe X-rated movies, but I think they must have really stuck out like a sore thumb in a movie 50 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just made the call that much more subversive and worse.
Yeah.
And the fact that he just keeps going and going, and then these noises that he's making and these different voices that he's doing, it feels like somebody with a split personality or something. I don't know.
Totally.
It's so off-putting in so many ways. And you're right. The girls' faces are so perfect. They just look stunned, like somebody just slapped them. You know? And obviously she says it's him again. So we don't know what the other phone call sounded like, but, you know, this guy's obviously been terrorizing them for a while. And I wonder if he's, you know, taking it up a notch, or, you know, I also I know they're trying to make a movie, but after a while I'm like, why even answer the phone? You know what I mean? Because like they answer every single time. But I guess it's what, I mean, 7, 10 girls living together. I guess you know, back then there was no answering machine, or, you know, there was your landline and that's all that you had. So I guess you kind of
Right.
answer it. But I mean, we find out later that Mrs. Mack has her own telephone line. The girls could have called their, you know, told their loved ones maybe just to call that line. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, but whatever. And irregardless, they do keep picking up these phone calls as, you know, the movie goes on. But it's quite shocking when this happens in the first act, because you just you don't see it coming, you know, and it just,
Right.
you know, you're just like, oh, nice Christmas movie, and then bam-o.
Right.
So,
And I think that I do think, I mean, we'll get there when we get there, but I think they have a good excuse for making them continue to pick up these phone calls and allow them to, you know, continue going for longer than you normally would. So
oh
I think
yeah,
the movie does a really
eventually.
good job at that.
Yeah, for sure.
Instead of us being like, what the fuck? Why do you keep answering?
Yeah. Um, so Barb kind of, I mean, you'll find Barb is kind of the loud one, a little bit brash. She kind of gets in the guy's face, tells him to stick his tongue in a light socket or something like that. And she ends up hanging up the phone. And the girls chastise Barb for provoking him, and Claire leaves to pack. And Claire's going to be our first victim here. So, and then we meet Mrs. Mack, who we hear knocking to be let in, and they give her the gift of like a nightgown negligee kind of thing. We watch that. That's a scene behind you, isn't it, Jess? I think in your background is the scene where she gets her. Yeah. Claire. So then Claire leaves, and can't see her in that picture, but she's just one of the girls. She goes up to her room to pack, and she sees Claude the cat in her room. She starts talking, kind of singing to herself as she's packing, because she's, I believe, going away with her boyfriend for the first time. And we later find out that the parents don't even know that he's coming. So that's interesting. I think she was planning on introducing Chris to her family, because she kind of says that when they get home earlier, when we see her bring him home, like, no, you know, don't come right away or something. I've kind of like got to get my parents used to the idea. So I think she's very excited. This is going to be a really big weekend for her, a really big holiday for her. And she hears a noise, and she goes to her closet, and we can see, so like in her closet, she has some of those like dry cleaning plastic bags hanging there empty. And the camera gets close enough to it that we're able to see that there's someone standing behind there, but I don't think Claire has noticed it quite yet. She thinks she hears something. She thinks it's Claude. She goes over to her closet, and she's like, who's that, you know? And then hands come out from the back of the closet and wrap the plastic over Claire's face. And she's yelling, but no one can hear her because of all the frivolity downstairs of Mrs. Mack opening her nightgown and joking with the girls. And then the camera, you know, goes on them for a couple minutes at the party, and then it slowly goes back upstairs, and we see the legs of someone leaving Claire's room carrying a body. It looks the dress of the person looks male. And then we just see, as his shadow goes by, he's carrying a body and heading back up to the attic, and we see the attic door close. The girls head up to bed, and Mrs. Mack sneaks one of her many hidden bottles of sherry. Isn't she old enough to drink? Jess comes back down with Phil, and you know, Mrs. Mack hides her sherry again real quick, and Mrs. Mack thanks them again. The phone rings, and Phil answers, and it's Peter, and he asks for Jess. He apologizes to her that he couldn't make it to the party. He was just too wiped out. It looks like he was getting ready to like give whatever like the musical equivalent of a thesis or a dissertation is, you know, something he has to do to graduate. I think it seems like he's like a music major. Anyway, he's been working on some project. He says he hasn't slept in like 3 or 4 days. She insists he needs to find time to talk to her. She won't say what it is over the phone, which irritates him. He says, and at the end of the conversation, he says, "I love you," and she says, "I know." And you can kind of hear him take a beat, and then he's like, "Okay, bye." And
this
then
is the first time that I start falling in love with Jess.
Yes.
That's right. Just say I know.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about all the stuff you just brought up?
Yep.
Okay, well, first of all, I think that when Claire goes to the closet, at first when she hears a rustling, she thinks it's Claude the cat. There's this cat that's been missing apparently, and not his fault, but he ends up being the demise for a couple of characters.
Yes,
It
yes, he
turns
does.
out, because everyone thinks it's Claude the cat that they haven't been able to find for the last week or so, when they hear rustling around the house.
Yeah.
So that sucked. Also, another setup where it makes sense that she would have those plastic, hangings for your clothes, especially for Christmas, just hanging in her closet, and for the killer to be able to use those against her. And that's kind of a theme that we see throughout the movie, is like having maybe there's one object where I'm like, why is that there? But for the most part, it feels like things are set up in a well-written way. And that the killer just kind of, finds what's available to him at that time and uses it to his advantage. Which is also, I mean, that's one of the things that makes him and his calls so scary, is that he just feels so unpredictable. It's not like a killer that's well thought out and planned and has all this, stuff under his belt that you have to be like, oh, well, we just have to figure out how he thinks. Like, you feel like you can't figure out how this person thinks and that they're just totally nuts.
For as little as we ever find out, no matter who this killer is, and no, I cannot prove it's Peter by any means, but whoever this killer is, it's just one of the most unhinged people. So that's what's kind of so unsettling. He's in this house with this girl, and if it's not Peter, then maybe this guy never ever even leaves the attic. That's what's kind of so scary about it. He does just find things around the house to bring the demise to these girls, yet we never have any idea why someone is doing this. And as we go too, it's kind of hard to hear, but you start learning a little bit more he talks about his sister Agnes and what did they do with the baby, and we can't tell him what we did with the baby, and just you kind of like something like he's obviously unhinged, and I don't know. I mean, whoever this guy is, does he think he's getting revenge on his sister, who's Agnes,
right.
It sounds like that's his sister, and don't tell mommy what we did with the baby, and who knows. And we never have any inkling why he's killing these college girls, no matter who it is. So yeah,
which is genius in my opinion.
Yes,
I love it. It creates so much intrigue, and we never really get a clear, straight answer. And I think it just makes it so much scarier that way, that he says and gives us just enough for to kind of start piecing stuff together. But that's it, like never enough to actually piece everything together. And it's, the unknown that's so scary.
Exactly. It's the unknown. It's 100% right. Because even what we do get still only ever really, I believe, in my opinion, only ever really leads us to think this guy is crazy. It still never gives us a clear motivation for what we know nothing about this person.
Exactly. Yeah. What else did I felt like there was something else. Barb does make a really insensitive comment, when she pisses off Claire and Claire goes upstairs about how you can't rape a townie.
Yeah.
Because Claire's trying to, after Barb says whatever she says to the killer over the phone that upsets him and makes him, respond that he's going to kill her. They're like, why did you have to antagonize him? And you need to be careful because remember that one girl got raped recently. They're all scared, as most of us women usually are because of news stories like that are always happening around you, wherever you live.
Yep.
And she has that really insensitive remark that you can't rape a townie. And I think that inside she regrets saying it, but it's just kind of interesting to bring up and see how they deal with these different kinds of topics and the way they talk about things, at this moment in time. And as we'll discuss soon, I'm sure there's the topic of abortion, which I think was just so brave for them to even touch on at this time. So it's really interesting little time capsule of a movie when it comes to those kinds of topics.
It's a very brave very brave movie. I don't think there was there. In fact, there not that I can think of. There aren't any other movies at this time doing what this movie is doing, horror or any other genre really. And I don't like. Barb is not my favorite character, and I don't like that comment she made. But I do believe that ever since she got off the phone with her mom, and then she kind of has a sense that a lot of the girls don't like her, and then she throws out that invitation, hey, does anybody want to go skiing? And you can just see all the kind of, everybody's trying to act like do like,
Yeah.
nobody really answers her, so only Jess and Phil are like, sure, Barb, and nobody else even answers her. And I think she just lashed out at Claire at that time because she was the one that said something.
Yeah.
I think
she's clearly defensive.
Right, exactly. And then Jess immediately, so Claire walks away after Barb says that to her, and Jess immediately follows her and tries to pacify the situation. Oh, come on, Claire, Barb didn't mean anything. And Claire's just like totally done with Barb at that point. So
yeah.
I mean, just to make a joke out of any kind of rape isn't cool for anybody to do. And I also think Barb was drunk. I am not trying to make excuses for her. This is not okay. I just think it was, why even include this in a movie that does seem so feministly progressive? And I think it was just, it's showing the reality of everybody, and that's why I don't want to brush over it. I didn't not include it for any particular reason. I just didn't, but I just wanted to say, like, I just think it was just an off the cuff remark that I agree. I don't think Barb's a bad person. I think she's dealing with a lot, and we'll kind of find that out as we go on here. But yeah,
and I think Jess and Phil understand that about Barb, because it seems like that they're always kind of, trying to placate her and tell people, like, I don't think that that's how she really feels, like, we know she's the drunk. Not that that makes it okay, but especially back then, you treated things differently and people got away with more when it came to things like that.
I mean, living in a sorority house would be like my absolute nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Women scare me. They really do. 3 or more women and I'm already uncomfortable. I mean, if you put 10 women in a house and be like, okay, live together, it'd be crazy that everybody got along,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Women just aren't always good to each other, for sure. So
I mean, put me around 10 people and I'm uncomfortable.
Absolutely. But believe it or not, I don't know. I know that, like, men are the ones that, like, are more tend to be the rapers or the killers or whatever, but I don't know, they're just more chill in day-to-day life a lot of time. Like, I'm talking about, like, maybe the workplace, like, I don't know. I'm old enough to just know what it's like when you get a bunch of women together. It's not always good. It's not always bad either, but I'm like really comfortable with this group of 2, me and you. This is great,
Right. This is great. I feel very comfortable.
I would just imagine in a sorority house, there's probably a lot of little tiffs that go on and girls that don't like each other. And it would just be how things were. And there'd always be that one was the loud one and one that was the quiet one, which would be me,
And they're all babies,
Yes.
They're all just like trying to figure shit out still. So sounds terrible.
All right, moving on.
Yes.
Okay, so we see Mrs. Mack gets another one of her hidden bottles of sherry. Jess comes back down with Phil. Oh, when we read that already. Okay, Jess heads up and tries Claire's room, but no answer, so she leaves. Cut to someone rocking Claire in a chair with the bag over her head and singing Bye Baby Bunting to her up in the attic, which is very creepy.
So creepy.
And like a man, there's something about a man doing a baby voice, it's just already happening. And he's just kind of like you can tell it's the voice from the phone, but he's kind of singing Bye Baby Bunting in like a baby voice. And it's just while he rocks this corpse in a rocking chair.
Yes, and her face, is just like contorted in this eternal like scream or fight for air. you
Yeah.
know, with her mouth gaping open and sucking in the plastic. It's just really horrific. And we know
Yeah.
that Claire was like this nice, sweet, innocent girl. I mean, not that anybody deserved that, but I think it just, you know, what's really cool about it is this is kind of like the first slasher, right? But now the main slasher trope is that, you know, what is it? Like the virginal person is usually the final girl.
Yeah.
And in this case, you know, the
Exact opposite.
professional virgin
Yeah.
got killed first.
Yeah.
So I just think that that's so interesting. I think it does kind of make you feel even more sympathetic, you know, for her character. Like she didn't even get to experience so many things. And I think that it's just so cool. This movie's just fucking awesome.
And I mean, of all the horror movies we've seen, how many more take that direction? I think in so many more slashers to come, we we see a girl do something bad. She has sex or she's mean to somebody, then she gets killed. We don't have that here. In fact, who's the most standout? Maybe Barb is the most crass or offensive. She was the one that
Mhm.
was mean to him on the phone. You would think he would go for her first, and he certainly does not. So, in fact, his
Yeah.
first couple victims make no, there's no motivation really. You know, like it's almost like seems like kills of opportunity, like who came up the stairs, because there just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like. I mean, he did. I don't know though, because the back of her closet was open, so maybe he just came. I'm not sure he even went to Claire's room on purpose. He that may have lead down from the attic for all we know. Because if you notice, the
Mm,
back of her closet, there was like no, like all the wood wasn't there. So I don't know what
right.
was where that guy was standing. I don't know what was behind there, but I don't even know that he specifically targets her either. He just kind of like seems like his kills are just of random opportunity. I
Yeah.
don't know that for sure, but it kind of, seems like it because he just uses whatever's there, and it's kind of like just whoever comes upstairs next is kind of what it seems like. Or else he
Right.
just has no just wants to kill and has no motivation and doesn't care that,
Yeah, well, he is cuckoo.
just
That's like the only thing that we are confident about.
for sure.
So, like,
Uh,
who knows how his line of thinking is even going.
no, not I. So it's the next morning, and we see a man waiting outside the school, who we later find is Claire's dad. He finally asks the student if he knows her. She's late meeting him, and the student directs him to this sorority house. Cut to the children's party the next day with Phil's boyfriend playing a very potty mouth Santa, while Barb looks on drinking while kids sit in Santa's lap. Yeah.
This scene's so funny.
I know. So then we cut back to Mrs. Mack and Claire's dad. So he obviously must have arrived to the sorority house. Mr. Harrison in Claire's room. They can't find her. They see her packed clothes. Mrs. Mack tries to hide Claire's vulgar posters from her dad. He says he's disappointed in the atmosphere. He sees a picture of Claire's boyfriend and asks, "Who is this?" She says it's Claire's friend, Chris Hayden. And he says, "I didn't send my daughter here to be drinking and hanging out with boys." She assures him that Claire is a good girl. She offers to take him to check the paternity house if he will drop her at a store, and he agrees. She goes and gets her things and thanks him and goes off and sneaks some more sherry. We see them leave from the point of view of Claire in the window, which is really sad. Because
It's
even
so
though
sad.
Claire's dad was kind of a dick, his daughter's dead, and I'm sure he's distraught. And
Yeah.
he just first of all just is realizing his daughter has gone off and become a woman, which is probably a lot for any dad to handle. Has a boyfriend and is now missing, and obviously she's living a life of sin here at this wild college. So.
I don't think he's a dick. I think he's just a stickler, you know? He seems very like bookish and a bright standing citizen guy. But I honestly, throughout the movie, and the more we, you know, see him while he's like in the search party and talking to Claire's boyfriend, which like I love him, Chris.
Yes,
He's
I did.
so
Yeah,
sweet and he's like really fighting for her, you know, and really trying to help her dad and stuff. I just like really grow attached to like all of the characters, you know, in one way or
100%.
another.
Well,
It's so
first of all,
like,
the world needs more Chris's, and by
yeah.
kind of a dick, like I mean, we see Mrs. Mack give him the finger behind his back because he just says some dickish things at this point. Yes, I too also fall in love with him as we keep going, but
Yeah,
he's kind of being like, I guess almost I think directing it towards Mrs. Mack, like what kind of a house are you running here? And then we even
that's
see
true.
Mrs. Mack later than like when she's sneaking her sherry, she's kind of like cursing him under her breath, like.
Yeah, she says that she can't be responsible for the morals of all the girls.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
the
Right.
hell.
But you can totally see like how Claire kind of really does appear like this really sweet girl. And you could totally put that as being her dad. They kind of seem like cut from the same cloth, and
Yeah.
obviously she's gone to college and is spreading her wings. But I could see her dad raising a girl that was probably kind of naive maybe when she went off to college and probably lived a certain kind of life up until that point, and now she's just kind of finding herself and she's probably got her first real boyfriend, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's what another reason why it's just so sad for her life to already be ended at this point. So
I know.
okay, here's the big scene now. Cut to Jess visiting Peter in the conservatory because remember he called and she said she really needs to talk to him. And he said, all right, at the end of that conversation, before he said, I love you, and she said, I know, he's like, come to the conservatory tomorrow. And she said, okay, I'll be there at 2. She tells him she's pregnant and doesn't want to keep the baby, which makes him quite indignant. This is me talking now. I don't think it's about the baby. I think it's her rejection of him, though he tries to guilt shame her. He actually says, ready for this? You can't make a decision like that. You haven't even asked me.
And then what did she say?
To which Jess says, I wasn't even going to tell you.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. He
I
said,
just love how like naturally and genuinely she says these things too. You know what I mean? I'm like, fuck yeah, Jess is cool.
yeah,
Like she knows who she is.
100%. I absolutely love her just for so many reasons. Not just because she's hot. Okay, to which, go Jess. She says, I wasn't even going to tell you. He says, Jess, I want us to have a baby, i.e., I want to keep you at any cost. How dare you reject me? And she is like, what about my life, Peter? Go Jess. Go
Yeah.
Jess. I think this very scene has played out in so many lives in and now. I know it did in mine personally. He also actually says, don't you ever consider anyone but yourself. Looking at you, Peter, because Peter has made it about himself since the phone call, basically. She says, I thought this, and she is very, you can tell she has put a lot of thought into this and is very calm. He's ramping up and she's just saying,
Yeah, and
she
she's
says,
not being like inconsiderate, I don't feel. You know what I mean? Because like she said, she wasn't even going to tell him. So I feel like she's doing a really good job at staying like level-headed and keeping true to herself and what she's thought through while also trying not to just like, be like gross or mean to Peter, when she definitely could have been in
right.
reaction to
And I
some of
know
the
it
things
sounds
he's saying.
and I guess you'd have to hear her say it, but you can just tell like her mind is made up, but she has really, her heart is broken. She's not like, I don't care what you think, I'm doing this. It's not like that at all. She is very sad, I think, to be in this situation. Didn't expect to find herself in this situation, which I know happens to people still today. But she just says, I've thought this out very carefully and I know what I want. People think women come to this decision lightly, and I guarantee you they do not. Then when that argument isn't working, he starts trying to shame her for ruining his audition later that afternoon. So now he's switched from, oh, well, that tactic didn't work. Let me, all about him, what she's doing to him. Don't you know how important this afternoon is to me? He tells her to leave, but when she does, he lets her know this conversation is not over. She already said it was over, but how dare she? He says he will see her tonight.
Ugh. I hate it.
I hate it so much. But I mean,
so you think You think that he was just trying to get her to stay with him? Because I felt like it was more of, guys and like being so attached to their seed, before it's even a real baby yet. Like, I feel like it's just some weird, I don't know, like gorilla brain thing where it's like, what? My baby. Like, that's what I'm on earth to do. And you're just going to kill it. I felt more
Well,
like that he cared about that aspect.
I mean, I know he just found out, but his motivation for yeah, you're right. The motivation for the baby his motivation for wanting the baby is not thought out. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction. I
Yeah.
think too, I think it might be the gorilla seed thing, or it's just, I really got the feeling it's like, whatever the decision, how dare you make this decision on your own? Like, no matter what it is. I think that's his big problem. And it's just, and because later we're going to see him kind of try, well, those didn't work, so now I'm going to try to be nice to her, and it's like he just keeps, and I think, a lot of guys do that, and then once they get her or once they have the baby, then they become a jerk. It was never about the baby in the first place. So
yeah, I'm sure that could be said for people in general, but my personal experiences is with men doing that. It's just like you said, like just switching up their tactic until they get what they want.
Yep.
You get duped, and then you're like, ah, crap, fell for it.
Yep. I 100% have been there, much to my chagrin. Yes.
Yes.
Like, it's the chase for guys, right? Like, they want something till they get it. And guys, I'm not saying it's every single one of you. I'm just saying, as a woman, I have experienced this time and again. They chase you real hard, they get you, and then they don't want you anymore. So,
right. There just happens to be a lot of guys that are used to getting what they want, and then they don't get what they want. And so then they're like, oh, now I really want it just to prove that I can.
Yep. Yep. I agree. That has happened to me. Okay, so on to happier horror here. Back to Claire's dad at the children's Christmas party where Barb is drinking again. Claire is not there, and her dad is telling her mom on the phone that he won't be home tonight. We see Barb letting a kid have a sip of her drink. This is quite the children's Christmas party here.
Oh my God, it's so funny. I don't know if you wrote down what the guy that's dressed up as Santa Claus says. I wish I had written it down. He starts like cursing when the kid's sitting on his lap, and I just think it's so funny.
I didn't write it down, but he's like, the kids are getting off and on his lap, and the whole time he's having a conversation with Barb, who's like over at the snack table or whatever, and he's like, I've been waiting a whole fucking year for this thing or whatever. I think because Phil has now said she would go skiing with Barb, and this is Phil's boyfriend who's playing Santa. So now they're going to have their weekend together, and he just says a bunch of swear words, and then Barb is like to the kids, isn't Santa naughty?
Yeah.
They're all like, yeah.
Funny. And yeah, her giving the kid some alcohol right in front of Claire's dad. Like, oh God, you're a hot mess, Barb. Love her.
Oh, all right. Back to the sorority house. The phone is ringing again. I mean, this phone ringing becomes quite menacing here pretty soon. Jess answers, and it is the breather. Billy, he starts talking about a baby. If you listen from here on, there's the argument for the killer being Peter. This is my own words now. What your mother and I must know is, where did you put Agnes, Billy? So cut to the police station where Claire's dad, Barb, and Phyllis. So Claire's dad, Barb.
Wait. Why do you think that that's an argument for the killer being Peter?
Something, I don't know why I didn't write down there why I thought that, but it was something about what he said. I don't remember right now, but I got more notes about why it's Peter. Give me time.
Okay.
Cut to the police station. Yeah, I just noticed I didn't put why I thought that. Something I heard in that conversation. I don't remember what exactly at this moment. Cut to police station. Oh, because he does start suddenly talking about a baby now, and he just had that conversation with Jess earlier in the day. And then okay, we'll get to it. Cut to the police station where Claire's dad, Barb, and Phyllis are trying to report Claire missing. Outside, we see a sign saying stay alert. It's well known back then that it was very hard to report someone missing after such a short time. Barb starts arguing, insulting the policeman at the desk. The policeman at the desk offers Mr. Harrison a form to fill out and says, I don't know if it's any consolation, but 90% of the time when girls are reported missing from the college, they are off somewhere shacking up with their boyfriend. And I had to shake my head at this. Another, dissy women, The dad again looks horrified, and rightfully so this time. Mrs. Mack, hold on. Mrs. Mack returns to the sorority house with the groceries. Jess greets her and takes the groceries. She tells Mrs. Mack the caller called again. She tells her Claire is missing. She finds more alcohol in the closet. Mrs. Mack finds more alcohol in the closet, but it's empty. Barb is freely drinking all the time. Not sure why Mrs. Mack. This is me. Barb is freely drinking all the time. Not sure why Mrs. Mack thinks she can only drink her hidden booze, unless she's trying to hide her drinking from the girls. Okay. Back to the police station. Fellatio 20880 is the number Barb gives the policeman for the sorority house. He doesn't get the joke.
That poor cop.
Oh, God. All right. Jess turns up at the hockey practice to find Chris, Claire's boyfriend, to see if he has seen her. He says he hasn't seen her since last night. She tells them that they went to the police and they didn't take it seriously. They think she's shacked up somewhere. Chris looks disgusted. Like I said, the world needs more Chris's. Mm-hmm. Cut to Peter failing his piano audition royally. This is a scene, man. He's stumbling. He's like, he looks like
sweating profusely
and playing the piano. Like, I know y'all can't see me unless you're watching the YouTube, but literally pounding the keys and like in a frenzy playing. And these three guys that you can tell are like supposed to be judging him or grading him or whatever, are just like, okay.
I honestly couldn't tell that it was bad. I was like, oh, you're supposed to do it very passionately.
Well, because he kept going with it. Like, if you know you're doing it bad, like, kind of like correct yourself. But he just kept getting louder and just kept it going. So anyway, he finishes and he looks defeated. He knows he has blown it. Back to the police station. Another mom is reporting her missing daughter to the police. She is only 13. This time the policeman is John Saxon. Unfortunately, he tries to dismiss her too, as it has only been a few hours, but she says it's unusual and they had specific plans. Chris busts into the police station with Jess and starts going off on the desk idiot. Ken, played by John Saxon, comes out. Him and Chris know each other. He starts complaining about Nash. Nash is the guy at the desk because Nash had made that comment that the girl's probably shacking up with her boyfriend.
Nash is the one who doesn't know what fellatio is, everybody.
Yes, doesn't know what fellatio is, right. He gets in his face and he says he has a big mouth, saying his girlfriend was shacked up somewhere and why aren't they looking for her? John Saxon asks him and Jess to come into his office. Because I guess, it's a good thing that Chris seems to know John Saxon.
Yeah. It's good because he kind of comes and like asserts himself and doesn't take any crap.
Yeah.
What I also like is that Jess went to him, and that throughout the movie, it seems like everybody has this kind of camaraderie, whether it's the girls in the sorority with one another or with Miss Mac or the father, Claire's father with the girls and with Chris separately. Like everybody's kind of on the same page. They all have the same common goal. And like when it comes down to it, they all seem like good people, And
they all respect each other.
Yeah.
Like Chris, I know it's Chris's girlfriend that's missing, but he doesn't question Jess at all. He immediately like goes into action, Yeah. And you could just tell that even Mrs. Mack, who I'm sure can be a little exasperated with these girls, you can tell she just, and they're not of her generation or anything like that, but you can just tell she just respects them. And, yeah, you're right. There's just a camaraderie and respect between everybody.
Yeah. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Cut to the sorority house, dinner, and Barb drinking again. Mr. Harrison has stayed for dinner. Miss Mack tells him to just chill and wait for Claire to call. Barb is reading a magazine with naked men in it and tells Mr. H that there's a certain species of turtles that can screw for 3 days without stopping. She's acting very gross. Barb starts accusing them of blaming her for Claire being dead. They tell her to go sleep it off. She's really kind of pushing it at this point.
That was a bummer scene.
Yeah.
because they don't know that Claire's dead, right? And she's saying these things right in front of Claire's dad, and everybody's trying to, obviously like keep him optimistic. I'm sure they themselves want to be optimistic. They don't know what's going on yet, so it's not a good look. And I just like the way, because Phil is always like very kind to Barb, and always just kind of laughing off her remarks and trying to help her out. And so when she gets kind of like mommy mode on her, like, you need to go sleep this off.
Yeah.
It just feels very genuine in the moment. Like, hey, I'm your friend, and you're finally like crossing a line.
Yeah.
And, I let you cross a lot of lines, but you can't cross this one.
Right. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you just told the father that you just called the father's daughter dead, and we're not going there yet. And go sleep it off. Immediately cut back to Peter in the conservatory wrecking the piano with a mic stand. He
is a giant man baby.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Throughout this whole movie, he's just like the biggest baby I've ever seen.
Yes. So true.
Like, I don't know how he acted before all this happened, but I was the whole time like, what does Jess find attractive about this person?
Oh, yes. Okay. Jess and Chris return to the sorority house and tell Mr. Harrison what they found out at the police station, but we cut to a POV of someone watching through the window, so we don't hear the conversation. We just see it like we see Jess and Chris come in, and you can tell they're telling everybody what just happened, but we're watching it from somebody outside. Jess, Chris, Mr. Harrison, and Phyllis go to join a search for the missing girl. This is the missing girl of the mom that was at the police station.
Yeah, the 13-year-old girl.
Yep, the 13-year-old girl, leaving Barb and Mrs. Mack alone in the sorority house. John Saxon is saying that Janice, who is the missing girl, went through the park on her way home from school that day, which is across the street from the sorority house. He tells them how to go about a search. It looks very cold. Very, very cold, I said.
Yeah, it does.
Cut to Mrs. Mack packing and drinking. And the cut on Claire's body in the cat. On Claire's, it's supposed to be the cat. On Claire's body.
Claude.
Claire's
there
body.
He is.
There he is. In the attic licking the corpse. It's very unsettling. Yeah. The taxi arrives for Mrs. Mack. Miss Mack hears a noise and thinks it's Claude, but he doesn't come when she calls. She goes looking for him and thinks she hears him in the attic. She wonders how he got up in the attic and starts climbing up there. We see someone with a rope behind her. She sees Claire's body. So this attic is one of those old attics. It's like the ceiling of the top floor. It's like a hole cut in it. And, this one has a ladder on the wall, but usually you would pull down a ladder. So she's starting to go, just her body, her head, and, she's going head first into the attic, climbing up this ladder.
Right.
We see someone with a rope behind her. She sees Claire's body and then senses someone behind her, looks and sees someone with a hook on a rope, which he hurls towards her. It catches her and jerks her body up into the attic where we hear her being killed. We don't see, but we hear her being killed.
Oh my God, that scene I love the way it's directed. I really love the way that they use zooming in and zooming out, particularly in this movie. It's always very slow and purposeful. And so every time they do it, it's revealing something or telling you focus in on Miss Mack is seeing this corpse and we're being drawn into it. We're trying to look closer, trying to believe our eyes. Wait a minute, is that a corpse?
Yes.
I really, really love the directing in this. It's so good. But yeah, this scene, this is the object I was talking, what was with the hook on the rope thing? Is that something people had in the 70s? I don't understand what it would be.
I don't know. Is that how you lift heavy things up in the attic? But the hole for the attic is literally a foot by a foot. Okay. So I don't know. That doesn't quite make sense, but
it could have been some sort of contraption where, you're pulling on one side of the rope and it's hoisting up, whatever. Yeah,
that's
maybe.
What I thought, but he must have the best aim in the whole world because
he hooks her through the throat.
Yeah.
You know what though? This is one of my favorite kills ever. I love it.
I agree.
And I love Miss Mac, so it was bittersweet.
Yep. So the taxi that had been there to pick her up, the guy now goes to the door and he's yelling and no one answers, so he leaves. We see the POV from the attic watching the taxi driver leave. We hear the voice from the phone moaning while he rocks Claire on the rocking chair. And then he starts like rampaging through the attic. And I put, Peter, is that you? Because we just saw Peter rampaging through the conservatory. And now someone is rampaging through the attic. So I'm just going to
I think that's why they're doing that, is because they want you to think it's Peter.
Uh-huh. I know.
Okay.
I'm sticking with it.
Okay, I'm interested.
Okay, back to the search, then camera panning to Claire in the window, now with Mrs. Mack hanging from a hook behind her. That's the thing. If anybody was outside and just happened to look up at this window, you can see Claire. She's right there, and now you can see Mrs. Mack hanging. And that's kind of like, the movie keeps coming back to that. We see that several times. It's like, it's all right there, people. In fact, like, I don't think this is a spoiler or anything, but the last scene of the movie is the policeman literally standing there guarding, and the camera pulls away and you see Claire up in that window. It's just that idea that like this whole time it's right there.
Yeah.
And nobody,
but I think
this is it.
I think it's not obvious though, you know what I mean? Because it's like always snowing and it's so like white and cold out, and then like at night it's so dark.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, I think it's just that she could be seen under the right, if anybody just happened to look at the right time or the right lighting. It's just, the guy wasn't like really super hiding what he was doing,
No,
it's like,
he's just like a total nutcase. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so all right, back to the search, then camera panning to Claire in the window and Mrs. Mack hiding behind her. We hear screaming coming from outside, and the camera pans back to look at the search where the little girl's body has been found. The mom is hysterical, and Mr. Harrington looks sick. Now, I don't know if this was like a red herring. We never have any reason to think this has anything to do with our killer, but we don't have any reason to think it doesn't either. It's literally like across the street. So I don't know. I don't know if it was just like to try to, this guy doesn't seem like that doesn't seem like his MO really though. He seems like he's going to take care of the sorority house. The girl's in it, you know what I mean? But I mean, they put it in there, so I don't know if it was to like lead you to think it's somebody else. There's a killer in the area, but this guy just doesn't seem to be about that. He seems to like have another agenda, but I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, I think that I don't know, because we can't really figure out his agenda because he's just like so nutso that I just always assumed it was him. But like, even if not, now we've found a dead body, and so now people are starting to suspect that, Claire could be dead.
Right, because they kind of, they gave that mom the same brush off they were trying to give about Claire. It's too early, and the mom's like, I'm telling you, something is wrong. Just like Claire's friends were trying to say, we're telling you something is wrong. This isn't like her. Well, now the little girl's been found, so, like I said, Mr. Harrington looked sick. I mean, I think he's starting to realize it too. It's not looking good. So Jess goes back to the sorority house. She was out helping with the search. The phone is ringing. She answers, and it's the perv. Sounds like many different voices. Please stop me. Oh, God, please help me. She says, what do you want? Why are you doing this? And he keeps on. It sounds like different people yelling at Billy, but he says, I know what you did. And then I put here, Peter, is that you, the abortion? She hangs up and says, Jesus Christ, and starts yelling for Mrs. Mack. Mrs. Mack had told Phyllis earlier that she was going to her sister's and might not be there when they got back from the search. So it doesn't seem, wouldn't seem weird that she's gone now too, even though she's hanging up in the attic. We do see a shadow lurking around upstairs, and we see Jess dialing the phone while the shadow comes down the stairs behind her. She's calling the police to report the obscene phone calls. We see legs and shoes emerge from the shadow and the point of view, POV, as it approaches her. Lo and behold, it's Peter. She jerks around and yells at him for scaring her. So if it's not Peter, he sure likes to lurk around like this guy does. But that could just be a a red herring too, you know.
Yeah.
He's very passive aggressive with her and says, she's like, you scared me. And he's like, yeah, well, you scared the hell out of me too. He says that he was upstairs sleeping because it got cold waiting for her. She tells him Claire is missing and she was helping with the search party. Under his breath, he says, how noble. I said, what? Yeah, I know, right?
This was probably like the most mad I was at him.
Yep,
like, okay, who's actually the selfish one here? She's on a freaking search party looking for missing girls. Like, fuck you.
And as
fucking
someone
Peter.
who's been pregnant, if she's just newly pregnant, trust me, she wants to be home sleeping. She does not want to be out searching in the cold, you know. The police finally come back on the line and put her on hold again. She asks Peter, how did the recital go? And he's like, how do you think it went? She says, why don't you quit attacking me and let's try to have a rational adult conversation. She's still, he's raising his voice again and she never does.
Oh my God, I feel like I've been in this situation so many times.
So many times.
Kind of traumatizing.
Yes. PTSD for me, for sure. Jess is talking to the same jerk at the police station. What's his face? The fellatio guy. Claire's dad, who is at the police station over here. Oh, yeah, thank you. Claire's dad, who is on the other end at the police station, overhears the address he is given and that the calls are coming to, so he recognizes it. He says there's been a girl murdered in the park, so they're busy and doesn't know. This is Nash says there's been a girl murdered in the park, so they're busy and he doesn't know when they can get a man on it, and again dismisses her by saying it's probably just one of your boyfriends playing tricks.
Like, seriously, still?
Yeah, right?
Stop going to boyfriends.
Yes.
Let's just get rid of that notion altogether.
I put, what does a girl have to do to get some help around here? Chris, Phyllis, and Mr. Henderson, who because they're at the police station, who overheard this, realize it's the sorority house. Back to Jess and Peter and the conversation. He asks her what's wrong. She says a little girl was found murdered in the park. Peter acts shocked and Claire is still missing. He says, well, Claire is all right. He says, I have something to tell you. I'm leaving the conservatory. Hear me out, please. He says he's been there for 8 years and he's tired of it. He's quitting and they're getting married. Now Jess looks shocked. She reminds him being a concert pianist is his greatest dream. He told her that when they first met. She says, remember, I also told you there are things I wanted to do. I still want to do those things. You can't ask me to drop everything I've been working for and give up all my ambitions because your plans have changed. Go, Jess.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Right? Be realistic. I can't marry you. He says we could be married and you could still do anything you want, which, trust me, no. I mean, I know there's people that do, but it rarely works out.
Especially not with a Peter.
Not with a Peter. It's how I ended up going to school at 30, which I'm glad I did because I have a great career now. But yeah, I got married and had my first set of kids young, and I still had all these plans, and just trust me, life has a way of getting put on hold. And I think Jess is being very realistic here. Yeah. And she says, she straight up says, Peter, I don't want to marry you. Okay.
And also, how dare he bring this up right after she says that a little girl's been murdered and Claire's still missing.
It's like all about him and his problems.
Let's just gloss over that. And she's pregnant, right? Like, and they found a dead 13-year-old. I don't know. He's so oblivious. It's frustrating. Yeah.
Back to the police station. Nash brings John Saxon the address he was given over the phone, saying, I don't want to bother you with this. His ineptitude is staggering. Where Claire's dad verifies that the address his daughter lives at, the sorority house. They agree to look into it. Phyllis, Chris, and Mr. H leave. John Saxon sees the fellatio note, and they all have a big laugh.
The scene is so funny. Oh my God, I love it.
The third guy that's just sitting at that other desk trying so hard not to laugh. It made me laugh out loud. I was
his whole body is shaking.
Yes.
I love it.
Okay. Back to Jess and Peter. He breaks a Christmas ornament. So this guy has some issues, right? A guy like this, I think he has a potential to get physical,
Yeah.
He breaks an ornament and says, "You selfish bitch. You talk about killing our baby as if you were having a wart removed. Remember that? What are you trying to do to me?" Like, just listen to that sentence. Everything. Me, 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 me.
Yeah.
Jess, let's get one thing straight. You are not going to abort that baby. Mm. Jess says, "You aren't going to tell me what I can and cannot do." He says, "If you try getting an abortion, I think you better leave. If you try getting an abortion," or he says, "If you try getting an abortion," she says, "I think you better leave." He says, "If you try getting an abortion," she says, "I said get out." Peter says, "You're going to be very sorry," and leaves. He runs into Lieutenant Fuller and Bill Graham, the phone company lineman who are just getting there, and Phyllis as he's leaving. They say hello, but he just brushes past them and slams the door.
Wow.
So, yeah, nice guy.
Class act there.
Yep.
But you see that he went through the tactic where he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna make you do what I want, and you can still do all the things that you want too. It's gonna be fine." And then just immediately switch to this.
Yep. He and a certain ex-husband of mine would get along famously.
Or maybe not, because they'd be too similar.
Yes, exactly right. Phil asks Jess, okay, so they're all home now and the police are there. They're going to tap the line. So Phil asks Jess if she's okay. And she says, and that she's brought the police to see about the phone calls. She introduces them to Fuller and Grant, who say that they need written permission to tap their phone. He asks to see Claire's room. Phyllis takes him upstairs. The Fuller guy, right? Yeah. He starts questioning them about Claire. Fuller sees a sherry glass in her room. And I love John Saxon and I really wanted to like him here, but I don't like this. Fuller sees a sherry glass in Claire's room and accusatorily asks, "What's this?" Like trying to find a reason why Claire might be missing. Like he kind of just insinuates like, oh, she's a party girl because there's like a glass of sherry in her room.
Yeah, I feel like whenever he's kind of following those threads, though, that he gives up on them pretty quickly.
Yeah, right. I agree. I
think he's just trying to like consider all the options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to give him a pass on that. And Jess says, "We were having a party last night." He asks, "Does she drink a lot?" And Phyllis says, "No, hardly at all." He asks if she had any emotional problems and keeps going through her stuff. I thought that, I know he has to, but it still felt a little like
dismissive.
Invasive. Yeah.
Yeah.
He picks up a picture of Chris and says, "Who is this?" Or who was she? No, this I didn't like too. He picks up a picture of Chris, who he had met at the police station, and then says, "Who was she seeing besides Chris?" And I wrote, "This guy is unbelievable, trying in every way to find some way to put the blame on Claire." The girls insist she wasn't seeing anyone else. He says, "Are you sure?" And they insist yes. He asks if there's anyone else home, and they say yes, Barb, who is laying down because she doesn't feel well, because remember, she's sleeping off her drunk. Graham, the telephone guy, he's finished tapping the phone, and it will now ring at the police station at the same time that it rings at the sorority house. He asks, is there any other lines? And they say yes. And this is where we find out there is a second line inside the house, that the house mother has one, but there haven't been any calls to it, and it's another number. He instructs them on what to do if the guy calls. Fuller tells them they have nothing to worry about because there's an officer staking out outside. Phyllis says, "Yeah, sure," sarcastically. Go, Phyllis. Graham and Fuller leave. We see Peter lurking outside. He comes out of hiding when the police pull away. He's watching the house. Dun, 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 dun. We never see any killer POV when we see Peter at the same time. I'm just saying. Back inside, Phyllis is crying.
That's because they want you to think it's Peter.
Back inside, Phyllis is crying, saying, "I know Claire is dead." Jess tries to reassure her. She says she's going to bed. We'll just be okay. And Jess assures her she will. We see police getting set up at the station. So they're getting ready to receive. I know, getting ready to receive the calls. Cut to someone rocking Claire while she's holding a doll. We only see a hand and hear a weird humming and mumbling. Same one from the phone. So he likes to sit with his corpse and rock it and sing to it, apparently. We now get a scene where Jess is sitting alone by the fire next to the phone, and the tension while everyone waits for it to ring, you can just feel it, just it's like the phone is its own character sitting in the room. We see the guy coming down from the attic. So like this sorority house seems to almost be like 3 stories. So like the main one is the one where I'm talking about where the phone is, and they were having the party, and there's like a fireplace. But then there's like a set of stairs that goes up to a level, and then there's another set of stairs that goes up to like another level where all the bedrooms are, and then above that is the attic. We see the guy coming down from the attic. He has a green turtleneck on, which so did Peter when he left. All I'm saying. POV of him going into Barb's room, who is sleeping. We hear choking sounds. Jess goes running. Barb points to her inhaler, and Jess tries to calm her down. She says she had a nightmare that a stranger came into her room and thinks it gave her an asthma attack. We see a point of view of someone who is watching them leaving down the hall. Barb goes back to sleep, and Jess leaves. Carol will show up outside the sorority house, and Jess goes to watch them and smiles. Point of view of someone lurking around upstairs again and going back into Barb's room. He sneaks up to her bed and whispers, "Hey, it's me, Billy. It's all right." He picks up one of her glass menagerie unicorns and begins to repeatedly stab her with it. Every little girl in the 70s had these blown glass collections. That Barb has this really big one that's like a unicorn with a really long unicorn horn on. Yeah, thank you. We get a backlit glimpse of the killer's face from Barb's point of view, but only the eye is discernible before she is stabbed. And he goes to town on her with this horn. Jess is still out with the carolers and hears none of this. A lady runs up and says, "Get the kids in the car," meaning the carolers. Jess runs out to ask what's going on. The lady who ran up said there's a little girl murdered in the park tonight. Jess goes back in and the phone is ringing. The police start their trace. Sounds like a woman moaning, and then a man and a woman screaming, then crying, then says, "Just like having a wart removed," which Jess recognizes and says, "Oh my God." She was told she needs to keep them on the line, but they hang up. Phone rings again, and it's the police saying they didn't get them because she didn't keep them on the phone long enough. Point of view now of someone on the staircase behind Jess. He calls out the fact that she said, "Oh my God," like she recognized something, which she quickly denies. Why? I said because she doesn't want to talk about the abortion conversation, like when, because she recognized that just like having a wart removed thing, And I don't think she's ready to tell the police, well, because I just had a fight with my boyfriend about the fact that I'm pregnant and going to have an abortion.
Right. I mean, that's not something that you typically feel comfortable talking about in general. But right. I'm sure especially back then, that would have been very, very awkward.
But I wrote here too, like this now just made the situation doubly hard on her, because I think for the first time, she now thinks maybe it could be Peter, and now she has to keep the secret. So here she's worried, they have this like guy, there's a killer on the loose. They have this guy making weird phone calls, and he's saying things that she had just heard her boyfriend say. So she's pregnant. Like she just had this huge fight. I mean, this poor girl, like what else could happen to her in one day? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fuller, who asked, was that guy that was leaving when I arrived earlier, and she said, "My boyfriend Peter," and he asked if they had a fight, but he's interrupted by someone brought into the police station, so he says he will call her back later and they will get him next time. This is the second time we take time to see the police all laughing while all this is going on. I did make a note of that, just how, and I'm sure they have to be that way. I'm sure they can't like get personally involved in every single case that they get. But it's just pretty obvious that they're able to like shut that off and still be jokey policemen at the police station.
Yeah.
And I put, is he trying to add levity to the movie or show the indifference of cops to these silly women problems? All these women are upset just because some guy is calling,
Right.
Back to Jess and Phyllis, seen from the POV as they walk down the hall of someone hiding behind a door. She is confiding to Phil that the caller repeated almost word for word what Peter had said to her earlier during their fight, trying to convince herself it's just a coincidence. Phil tries to reassure her. Jess says she's really getting scared. They check and the policeman is still outside, so they feel better temporarily. The phone rings again. This time it's Peter crying. You said
Man,
he's
baby.
the biggest baby.
Not
She tries to.
that men can't cry. You meant men can cry.
Right.
It's okay. It's just that in
He's
this
crying
scenario,
he's crying to try to get. He's tried everything else, so now he's gonna try crying. Is what we're saying.
Exactly.
The phone rings again. It's Peter crying. She tries to calm him down, but he's begging her not to kill his baby. There it is right there. His baby.
Yeah.
Saying, I know you want the baby. I know you do. Okay. She just told you that she didn't, Peter. Now the police know she's pregnant because they're listening to the phone calls. She keeps begging him to tell her where he is, but he hangs up. The phone company tells the police the calls aren't long enough. So, yeah, that was Peter, but they weren't able to see where it was coming from. Phone rings again. That's the police. He confronts her about killing the baby and says it's important she tells the truth. This is Fuller confronting Jess because he just heard that conversation. She tells him she is pregnant and told Peter earlier that day that she didn't want to keep it. So not Peter, or Peter was already crazy killing people. That's me saying that. Fuller says you can't kill the baby is a strange way of putting it. And Jess says he is an artist and she's trying to make excuses for him. She says he's an artist. He's very high strung. And Fuller says neurotic, maybe. Like,
and you know, I really like that he said, because I feel like how many people today say that, like, that you're killing the baby. And he was like, that's a strange way of putting it. And I was like, yes, it is.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And he totally is neurotic too, like in every way.
He really
he
is.
just beat up a piano. Okay. She says no more than anyone else. Fuller says he doesn't want it to be Peter, but if it is, he needs help. Was Peter ever with her when the calls came? And she says, yes, Peter was there earlier. Fuller wants to talk to him and she tells him to try the conservatory. He then tells her she needs to keep the guy on the phone longer. Yet again, Fuller requests we see Fuller requesting all records on Peter from the dean. Phil is upstairs and hears a noise and sees Barb's door close. She goes over and goes in Barb's room to ask if she's awake, and we see someone else shut the door from the inside, but we can't see who, shutting Phil in the room with Barb. Fuller goes to the conservatory and sees the busted up piano. Jess is going around shutting and locking all the doors and windows in the sorority house. She calls for Phil, but no answer. We see someone dialing the phone from Miss Mack's room. Jess answers. It's the creep. You fat pig, you fat bitch pig, and a bunch of screaming and grunting in male and female voices. Billy again, and where's the baby? The telephone guy, Graham, is trying to trace the call, and they tell Fuller he's on the line again. And I hope the telephone company has been able to simplify their systems since this giant warehouse of telephone equipment we see, because this guy trying to trace this call looks like he's in like an Amazon warehouse and he has to run from like one side to the other to see like where the wire is going. I just hope it's gotten a little easier now.
Oh my God, it was crazy. It was really interesting to see though.
Yeah, it was. It was. And I'm sure, that's probably great technology for that time.
Yeah.
We hear the telephone call play over the scenes of Jess listening, Graham figuring it out, and the police heading over to the sorority house. He hangs up the phone in Miss Mack's room. Nash calls Fuller on the radio and says the calls are coming from inside the house. And I put, is this the first time for this horror trope? Oh shit, says Fuller, and tries calling Jennings, the cop stationed outside the house, who was supposed to be keeping watch, who we now see has his throat cut, and so he's not answering. He calls Nash back and tells him to calmly call the sorority house and not tell them the guy is inside the house. I put question mark, question mark, question mark. Just tell them to walk straight outside the house. He'll be there in 5 minutes. We see Jess still calling for Phil. And the phone rings. Jess tentatively picks it up, and it's Nash telling her to put the phone down, walk to the front door and leave the house, do what he says, ask no questions. She says she will get Phil and Barb, and he yells, no, don't do that. The calls are coming from inside the house. So there he just told her, just get out. We see Jess looking upstairs while Nash tells her not to go up there. We see Jess contemplating. Then she starts yelling. And this is a sad scene. I put this as a heartbreaking scene. Yeah. She keeps yelling for Barb and Phil, and she's getting no answer. So she grabs a fire poker and heads upstairs. In the meantime, you can hear the phone. Nash is yelling, don't go up there, but she's going to go and try to save her friends. She goes.
And also I like really felt for Nash in that scene too. Like you could tell in his face, like how worried he was,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
also, I mean, I think he saw through what I feel is a mistake of John saying, don't tell the girls he's in the house.
Yeah.
Absolutely tell the girls he's in there, get out, you know? I mean, I think
Yeah.
they need to know the severity of the situation. She
Right.
gets Barb's room, but it is locked. She forces it open and sees the mutilated bodies of Barb and Phil in the bed together. She backs out of the room and suddenly hears Billy's voice talking to Agnes, and we see an eye poking through the crack of the door. So imagine you walk into a room, you open the door inwards, the eye is like, you know, somebody's behind the door and the eye is like peeking through and she sees
It
that.
is the creepiest eye ever.
Yes, it is. But I
It's
cannot
so
tell if it is
menacing.
Peter's eye.
True. Yeah, but
Um,
it's just like a very menacing eye, and it's all like
well,
wide
it's
open.
all you see. I mean, it's
Yeah.
written perfectly so that like it's all you see is this eye. It is very like I would shit my pants if I saw that.
Yes.
Slams it on him and runs for the front door, but he grabs her by the hair. Oh man.
Oh,
Oh, God.
brutal.
And she has, if you don't know, she has like waist length hair. Okay.
Beautiful long hair.
Yes. And
Cool.
they struggle. She locks him in the basement. I put a question mark because I mean, that's where he ends up, but she puts him behind some door and locks it. I didn't know she was that far down. I guess I didn't know where they were because it seemed like she was just upstairs in Barb's room. So I don't know if they like fought all the way down all the flights of stairs or what, but
Yeah.
somehow she locked the basement. He's banging and yelling and beating on the door, but it suddenly stops. We hear footsteps and another door close. She heads back upstairs but doesn't see anyone, but it's very dark. Cut to the police speeding, their sirens blazing. She hears someone outside and goes to look. She sees a shadow outside the window and someone trying to peer in. They are sneaking slowly around and she sees him pass the basement windows and peer in each one. So picture somebody like crouched down, sneaking from window to window trying to look. Guess what? It's Peter. And I put another argument for it being Peter. Why would he know where she was in the house, and why would he be sneaking slowly? Just
I
throwing
did
that out
wonder
there.
about that.
If he was concerned for her, he would have come in the house yelling for her. Or if he
Yeah.
couldn't get it, he would be outside yelling at the top of his lungs if he was concerned for her. Instead, he says not much more than a normal voice, Jess, are you all right? Like you knew you were talking to someone. Like he knew exactly where she was, which he shouldn't have. Which implies to me that he knows she's in there. If not, he would have been yelling, Jess, answer me, just like she was yelling for Barb and Phil as he ran around the house. Which is what I said. She doesn't answer or come out of the shadows. In my opinion, I feel like the look on her face implies that she has changed her tune on thinking it is Peter behind this. Because so when she locked this person in the basement, after all the beating stops, we hear someone go out the back door. And then the very next scene, someone's out there in that very same part creeping around, and it's Peter. The fact that he stays in the one spot he knows she is, instead of running through the house calling her name, is another argument for Peter, I think. He hears her move and now sees her hiding with her poker. He very menacingly approaches her, saying, you had me in this really condescending, sweet, syrupy voice. You know, you really had me worried. What are you doing down here? The police arrive and see the dead policeman outside and hear screams coming from inside the house. They break into the basement and find Jess with dead Peter on her lap. They wake her up. Cut to Jess in bed surrounded by Chris, Fuller, Claire's dad, and a doctor, while we hear Fuller saying, I knew it was him. Why would he start killing people? They have drugged her, so it'll be 4 hours until they can ask her questions. Nash says they have to take the bodies to the morgue in the next town because the local hospital can't handle that many. There's tons of people in the sorority house, including TV, which I put a question mark. Like, this has to be a 70s thing because you see Jess is like knocked out in bed and there's just all this hubbub going on around her, and you could hear the police having conversations all around the group, you know, that's around Jess, and they're like, you can tell them you hear him talking to like TV reporters and stuff. And I just thought it was strange that they were there. I said crime scenes were different back then, I guess. Fuller says to get them out of there and tell them to go to the station. He will talk to them there. Everyone leaves Jess's room. Claire's dad faints as everybody was getting up to, I think it was just, too much for him. The doctor who was supposed to stay with Claire, or with Jess, helps to carry the dad down to the ambulance, leaving Jess alone. The camera stays fixed on Jess while a policeman goes in her room, shuts off the light, and leaves her alone. The house goes quiet. And I put, did they really just leave her alone? Camera pans.
So frustrating.
I know. Camera pans over to the bloody mattress in Barb's room, then across the room, past Claire's room, and the music changes to the ominous killer music. Keeps panning throughout the sorority house until we get to the attic. And then I put, oh no, gonna blow my Peter theory right out the window. We see the undiscovered bodies of Mrs. Mack and Claire still up there. And what do we hear? Do we hear Billy whispering again? Peter theory. And this is my Peter theory.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay. Why include that statement that there are too many bodies for the local morgue and we see these other bodies left upstairs? Are they undiscovered? Was Peter's body never really taken away either and he wasn't really dead? Is he now lurking around? We hear, it's me, Billy, and the camera pans outside the window where we see Claire's plastic-covered face as it keeps panning out. We see a policeman standing guard outside the house. It's silent, so Jess has indeed been left alone inside the house with Billy and the dead bodies of her friends. The credits roll and we hear the phone start to ring while the policeman stands outside smoking his cigarette. Such a quiet ending. Music, you're used to music at the end, but there's none. The credits just start rolling and there's no sound. Nothing. The phone starts ringing steadily louder and louder, which I said must be replacing the outro soundtrack, and then it fades to black. And that is it.
One of the best endings. One of the most chilling endings. Just seeing Claire's face again through the window is just like so sad. So your theory is that Peter didn't actually die.
Right, because they didn't take all the bodies because they said they couldn't take them all right now. They had to take them to a different morgue in town. Why even put that line in the movie? There's no reason to. And I can't, but the way that Claire's body is still in a chair with a bag over it makes me think they hadn't discovered it yet, or because you'd think they'd move it, right? But I'm not 100% sure. Or did they was that the group of bodies they couldn't take right away? What bodies did they take, if any? Because I think they took Barb and Phil were the only ones they took. But they must know there's more bodies because they said we need to send the rest of the bodies somewhere else. So did they just leave Claire in her chair like that?
I don't think that they knew about Claire or Miss Mack. I think that they were referring to Peter and the other officer probably.
All right. Well, we only see Peter on Jess's lap. We don't know for sure that he's dead. He's just laying there bloody. So I thought maybe they didn't take his body. You would think, though, someone would have checked him. Is he dead? But we never hear someone say Peter is dead. We never hear anything like that. We never see what happens to him. So I cannot 100%. I guess I'm more making an argument for why it could be Peter. Then I know for sure that it's Peter. I'm trying to make an argument that it could be Peter. We can't totally rule him out, but no, I guess I can't say 100% for sure, but I'm really leaning in that direction.
Yeah. I definitely don't think that they would have left Jess in the house with Peter if he wasn't announced as dead already. I don't think they would have just left him anyways.
They just left her alone though. What if she did wake up? She could be terrified.
I know.
You know what I mean? No, out of all, there was 20 people in the house. The doctor did say he was going to stay with her, but okay, we just saw the doctor leave with another patient. Nobody, and the other policeman literally went in there, closed her window, shut off her light, and shut her door. So they were well aware that they were leaving her by herself. And, you drugged her and you think it's going to be 4 hours, but people wake up all the time, she could be, they weren't smart about a lot of things. That seems like something that none of these guys seem to know which way was up, so I don't know. I guess I'm just saying maybe it could be him. So,
yeah, it did also just kind of seem like a circumstance that they weren't prepared for, even physically, So That could have had something to do with it too, just not enough resources to deal with so many murdered people and a psycho killer on the loose.
Yeah, that probably doesn't happen every day in sleepy little college towns in Canada, so.
No.
All right, well, I've been talking forever, so you want to give your rating first?
Yeah, let me do that. Let me take a drink of your pop. Let me go through here.
Okay.
Well, let me see. I think I pretty much brought up all the things that I loved about this movie. I know I brought up that I love the directing. The movement of the camera is just so impressive to me. The aesthetic, of course. And I just love how brave Jess is throughout the movie, in just like her faith and confidence in herself and what she knows is what she wants, as well as like some of the topics that were handled, as well as like going to check on her friends when she knows there's a killer in the house. Um, it was like really admirable, but not so outside the realm of what you could believe,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of movies where you're just like, okay, this is so unrealistic. This movie feels so genuine and real to
Yes.
me. There's
Yep.
nothing about it that feels fake to me. It goes a long way. I also think the pacing is so good and the runtime is just like perfect. Like
Yes.
everything feels important or like purposeful. Even the jokes, you know what I mean? And it's definitely not like overly comedic, but it's like they're placed just perfectly and there's just enough of like comedic levity
Yep.
that you're not just, it makes you feel like even closer to the characters, I think, you know what I mean? And their camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
Even Nash, like Nash is kind of the butt of the joke all the time, but even I feel like he even has a chance to connect with Jess at the end and we see
Yeah,
him really acting in that scene.
he gets a redeeming scene at the end, like
Yeah.
to show
Unless
he's
you think he shouldn't have told her, but even
I
if you
think
think
so.
that,
Yeah.
I do too. Um, But I think, like, even if you didn't agree with that you could see him really acting in that scene,
Yep.
and like the fear on his face and him just really wanting her to listen to him because he's so scared that she's going to get killed.
Yep.
Um, Let me see. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I mean, of all the Christmas horror movies, this one is so good because it's very Christmassy still.
Yes.
It's very entertaining, but it's actually dark and terrifying, where a lot of other Christmas horror movies don't go there. If you think about it, a lot of them are fun and
Mm-hmm.
campy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I actually think that Silent Night, Deadly Night, like, doesn't get enough credit for how dark it really is because Billy's whole backstory is like pretty sad and brutal and intense, but this is like so more realistic than that is. You know what I mean? And I just feel like there aren't any other Christmas horror movies I can think of that really do that um, like this well. So I think it definitely gets credit for that. And nobody's safe, not even young girls or virgins, and in fact, they're the first victims. So, yeah, there's nothing safe about this movie. And I really like that. It really raised the stakes. And it's just every time I watch it, I think that my rating goes up a little more every time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And right now, I'm a 9 out of 10 on this. So, but like, I don't know. It's probably going to be a 10 out of 10 at some point, if I'm being completely honest with myself, even though it's a Christmas movie, because it's just so good. It's so good. I can't really find anything wrong with it. And Billy is just like one of the scariest killers that's ever been kind of put on screen. We never even really get to see him. We don't get to find out if he is Peter or not. And it makes it like so much more scary that that's how they leave off. Um, yeah, just terrifying. And especially the way he goes between those voices. That is just like the most unsettling thing I've ever heard in my life. It's crazy.
It's such a good representation of someone being absolutely insane without you having to be convinced. You just can tell by those phone calls You don't need anything else. You don't need to see him. You don't need to see his actual kills. You can just tell by those phone calls, this person is completely insane.
Yeah.
And that's just terrifying because you really don't know what someone like that would do. So, yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, that's my rating. What's your rating?
Well, mine, of course, is 10 out of 10. This is one of my absolute favorites. I know, it's just so shocking. I agree with that. I would have said pretty much everything that you said, so I won't repeat all that. But I don't know if this is just because it's the first one, but I think this is what you were saying too, is just how organically this film unfolds. Like, it really does feel like real people in real situations. There's nothing, not one single thing over the top about it, which I think we kind of like. I think a lot of horror movies are just like something maybe slightly over the top about it. This just really feels like this could, how something like this would actually happen. And it's not some crazy guy in a mask or anything like that. It's just some guy, which also isn't that like what serial killers are, is just some guy. And that's why it takes so long to find them, because there's nothing about them that sticks out or,
Right.
Obviously this guy was living some kind of a life before this. I mean, it sounds like he had a terrible childhood and all that, but
yeah,
I agree. All of the characters, even with their flaws, I just connected with all of them, loved them. I've spent a lot of time with these characters. I usually watch this movie at least like twice a year. The aesthetic is just off the charts for me. There's some really great wallpaper and clothes in here.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just love everything about it, and I agree. It's just one of those movies that I don't know how you could remake it. It never should have been remade. It's absolutely perfect. But I think it goes I think it's getting more of a cult following now, but I think it been a very long time as kind of like an unsung hero. And I think maybe it's just taken this long to see how much influence it has had over other horror movies and filmmakers and people, can just start to see what a gem it is. So yeah, it's a perfect Christmas movie. It's a perfect horror movie. It's a perfect friend movie. It's just a good people movie. There's just not anybody not to dislike in here. Well, maybe Peter, but
except Peter. Yeah.
But you need his character for, to understand Jess better. But I wish I could be more like Jess. I wish I was more like Jess. I think my life would be different, but
especially
I just love
at that age.
Right? I'm so proud of her. And that does stand out for that time. But I think, that was at a time when women were, I think in 1974, you still had to have your husband's signature. I think it was 1975 where you didn't have to have your husband's signature anymore to get a credit card. So I think women were, really just starting to come in, like, say, I can have a life. I think a lot of women before that, and what kind of probably sparked the whole abortion thing is, what other, if a woman got pregnant, really what other life was there for her anyway? So I think they just kind of, well, I'm going to just ultimately be a mother and a wife anyway,
Mm-hmm.
And here's the first time women are like, no, F that. I can have a life too,
Yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely.
I don't know. It's just great in so many ways. And it's a great horror movie. So I can't imagine anyone listening has not seen it. But if you haven't, you need to get on it for sure.
Yeah, and hot take for me, because I know that many horror fans love Halloween, like, as their number one movie ever or whatever. Yep. I like this better than Halloween, personally.
I do too. Although there is definitely some crossover there, and there's some good 70s stuff in Halloween too. Also, Halloween also, not Halloween 2. Halloween also.
Right. Yeah, and I still love watching Halloween, and I have fun with it, and it's also like terrifying in a lot of ways. But I don't know, I just feel like that I just enjoy this more.
I think it's because not only, but I mean, in Halloween, we know who the killer is. We know his backstory. We see him in the daylight. This just never gives you that, satisfaction or whatever. We just never find out about Billy other than his eyeball and his pants and his shadow.
Yeah.
A couple times, like we just never get any answers. And so I think that's just ultimately scary. Yes, Michael Myers is terrifying. He's like, the Terminator, he just keeps coming for you. That is terrifying. This is just a different kind of terrifying. So.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I will get into some trivia for us.
Yay!
So I don't have this all written out yet, so I'm just going to kind of comb through some IMDb trivia and see what pops out at me. One thing that definitely popped out at me, and I'm pretty sure I've heard this before, is that NBC had scheduled this film for its primetime network debut on January 28th in 1978 under the title Stranger in the House. And then on January 15th of 1978, 2 female students at Florida State University were murdered by an assailant who broke into their sorority house where they lived. 3 other young women in the immediate vicinity were attacked and assaulted. And NBC received numerous pleas from locals to pull the movie from broadcast in light of the crimes. And after first stating that they would offer the local affiliates an alternative movie to broadcast, they decided to just pull the plug on the movie altogether. Instead, the film Doc Savage, Man of Bronze was shown. NBC instead ran Stranger in the House as a late movie on May 14th that same year. And that perpetrator of the crimes at Florida State University was later identified as serial killer Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
So
I kind of can see that. I can agree with that. I think it would be too soon for sure.
Absolutely. Let's see. Reportedly, writer Roy Moore took inspiration for the story from an actual series of murders that took place in Montreal, Quebec, around the Christmas season, along with the urban legend, The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. So, those urban legends are urban legends for a reason.
Right.
The audio for the demented phone calls was edited into the film during post-production. While shooting the footage for the phone call scenes, the actresses were actually just reacting to threatening dialogue being spoken from director Bob Clark from off camera.
Oh, well, they did a good job, because I would have believed they were hearing that level of filth. You know what I mean? Like their faces.
Yeah.
That job.
That first phone call scene is so good. That's very surprising to me, actually. A strict rule that Clark had set for himself when it came to writing the female characters was to never objectify them sexually or give them nude scenes. He wanted the college girls to come off as real people and not disposable horror characters waiting to die.
A+ on that, 10 out of 10. He absolutely did it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I hadn't even thought about that, and I'm definitely not opposed to nudity in slashers. It's always, like a good it's a thumbs up for me normally, but yeah. I mean, it's a good point, and it obviously made a difference.
Yep.
Because the one time that really does bother me is when, it's a situation where it's like, why are you having sex when there's a killer lurking around?
Yeah. Right, exactly.
So definitely in that situation, it would have felt like that. The film had only moderate box office success and negative critical reception when originally released. However, the film went on to have a large cult following. It has since received a critical reevaluation and is now considered a classic, which I definitely think that is true, especially based on all of our listener comments and feedback. Despite its ominous themes and plot, Olivia Hussey reassured that the set was a very light and happy place between takes, stating that everyone got along with each other very well. She did, however, admit, seriously. Mm-hmm. She did, however, admit that Margot Kidder was rather distant from the cast and crew during the filming. So, I wonder what was up with that.
Oh.
I don't know, but I love Barb. The original title of the film script was Stop Me. It was director Bob Clark who came up with the title Black Christmas, saying that he liked the irony of something dark occurring during such a festive holiday. The title is also a tongue-in-cheek reference to the Christmas song and 1954 film White Christmas. Bob Clark, you are a gem.
You are.
Like, yeah, everything having to do with him, I'm like, yeah, and this is like exactly what I was saying, that there aren't any other Christmas horror movies that feel this like dark and bleak and real, and that contrast like really stands out when, with all the Christmas stuff going on around. Let's see, what else is interesting? Oh, the snow scene outside of the sorority house was actually fake because there had been surprisingly little snow fall during the filming. A foam material that was provided by the local fire department was used for snow on the lawn, and according to cinematographer Albert J. Dunk, the substance actually caused the grass on the lawn to grow greener than ever the following spring. That is quite interesting. I wonder what the science behind that is.
I don't know, but it fooled me. It looked great.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Upon initial release in the US, the film's title was changed to Silent Night, Evil Night because the American distributor feared that the title Black Christmas might cause the film to be mistaken for a blaxploitation flick.
Oh, oh my God.
However, the film didn't do well under the new title, and it was changed back to the original Black Christmas title, under which it was a success. Yeah, and that makes sense. That is so funny.
It's a good thing.
Right. The sorority house scene in the film was not a set constructed for the film, but an actual house that had to be rented for the film's production. Some scenes in the script had to be slightly rewritten to accommodate the house's foundation and structure. It still stands to this day as a popular tourist attraction. Oh, that would be fun.
That would be fun.
Let's see. During an interview with director Bob Clark, Clark said Olivia Hussey's decision to take the role of Jess was based upon advice given to her by a psychic. According to Clark, Hussey said her psychic believed that the film would be successful and a wise career choice for her, so she took the role. That is.
Oh, they were right. Eventually.
Fun. Yeah, eventually. Let's see. We already basically talked. I guess this goes into it in a little more detail. Black Christmas was allegedly inspired by some real life murders that occurred in Montreal, Quebec, Canada during the holiday season. This is most likely based on Canadian serial killer Wayne Bowden, who killed 3 women in Montreal between October 1969 and January 1970. His 4th known victim was murdered in Calgary, Alberta in May of 1971. Bowden was known as the vampire rapist. So
nice.
That's an interesting serial killer title. I might look into why he was titled that way.
What's with the vampire? Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. A novelization of the film written by Lee Hayes was published in 1976, which offered more insight into the characters and more plot development. The book is rare, however, as it has since gone out of print. I wonder if that would be a good read or if it would ruin the good things about the movie.
I don't know. I bet it could probably cost $300-400 to get a copy or something now on eBay, probably. But I would probably read it. I wonder if it, does that mean that it says who the killer is? Does it give more of a history of
right? That's what because I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a little bit, but I don't want like everything fleshed out because then he'll be less scary. According to Bob Clark, Margot Kidder insisted on drinking real alcohol for the various scenes where Barb was to be drinking and be intoxicated.
Oh. Okay.
Get into character. I told you it felt genuine. How funny. This is just a rumor, but legend has it that this was Elvis Presley's favorite horror film, and his tradition was to watch it every Christmas. Further rumors say that his family kept the tradition alive and watched it in his memory. If true, Elvis would have celebrated this tradition a maximum of only 2 times before his
I was gonna
untimely
say.
death. Yeah, in August of 1977, less than 3 years after the film's initial release. Yeah, 2 years doesn't count as a tradition. That's so funny. But if his family carried it on, maybe he really did like it. I don't
I
know.
hope that is true. Yeah.
I know, me too. Also, you know, I hate Christmas and I hate Christmas songs, but my favorite Christmas song is Blue Christmas.
Mine too. No way.
Yeah, I love how depressing it is.
Yeah.
And obviously Elvis's voice is amazing. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm just trying to come through and see if there's anything good. You know, I feel like that's a lot of trivia. Was there anything that you remembered, like off the top of your head, that you wanted to bring up?
Nope.
Okay, I think that that's fine. Oh, I want to read this one though. According to director Bob Clark, there were 3 voices used for Billy's frightening phone calls, including actor Nick Mancuso, an unnamed actress, and himself. During a Fan Expo panel in 2014, Nick Mancuso said that the actress was probably Anne Sweeney, though he was not entirely sure, as the film came out 40 years prior, and he could not remember properly. Interesting. Ooh, you're right. An early example of a largely mainstream film containing the word cunt. This was cut out for its UK release. Love it. That's so cool. Why is it cool? Because it's punk rock. All right. I think I'm good on trivia.
All right.
How do you feel? There's like so much trivia, you guys. Just go on IMDb if you need more.
I just knew there was a lot for this movie, so I'm glad we included some at least.
Yeah, definitely. I know.
I love this movie and want to know absolutely everything, so maybe that's me, but
no, totally. I am on the same page as you. So before we leave, we do want to get into our monstrous mention. And this week it is the wonderful, beautiful, sweet artist, Lisa Snellings, who I had the great honor and privilege of working with. I was her assistant artist for a couple of years back in Palm Springs. And then funnily enough, you know, I moved up here to Portland and she soon after moved to Eugene, Oregon. So she's not super far away, but, you know, too far for us to like work together as painters. But she's amazing. She's been working for about 30 years in her art career, at least. She actually used to be a scientist. And I know, I don't know exactly what she did, but she's from the South. She has this very like Southern Gothic like aura about her. She is so amazing. I miss working with her. But she does these little figurines that are called poppets. And that's kind of like her bread and butter work that she does. She sells these little guys on Etsy. They're supposed to be kind of like aliens, for lack of a better term, like a creature that comes to Earth to kind of reflect, you know, to humankind, like what they are and what they do, but they're like very cute and they're collectible. And all of her work is kind of this like dark carnival kind of like Southern Gothic feel to it. And so I used to work on the poppets with her. That's what I would help her out with. And then she also has like crazy installation art that she's done. She did this whole gigantic carnival that I think there's like one sole collector who pretty much bought all of that. And there was this really great article about it I was trying to find so I could put it in the show notes, but I could not find it for the life of me. So maybe I'll reach out to her and see if she knows what I'm talking about. But
sure.
Yes, but I love Lisa so much.
She sounds amazing. Sounds like somebody I would like.
You would love her.
Yeah.
She was great. Working with her was like definitely the best job I've ever had. And it was kind of just like having, well, not free. I mean, we were working and stuff and I got paid, but it was more like a therapy session. You know what I mean? Like getting to
Yeah.
work on art and us talk about our feelings and stuff. It was really awesome. And she's got some different projects that are coming out. She also wrote this really awesome book called Nightbirds that I highly recommend. And I was going to tell you, Tammy, I hope that we can cover this book at some point on the podcast for a
Sure.
book nook.
Yeah, sure.
It's also pretty short and a quick read, like the last one we did. But it's kind of based or influenced by her childhood in the South, and it's like a gothic ghost story, and it's really cool. And she's also working on a tarot deck that goes hand in hand with her poppets. Like she's making a little poppet for each tarot card, and she's going to release a book with it when she's created all of the different tarot poppets. Um, and she's also working on a new book that's titled An Art Book About Fear. And you can support that by becoming a patron on her Patreon. And I'll have everything in the show notes, of course. But just a little rundown here on Patreon. It's just patreon.com/Lisa Snellings. And then on